Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had to defeat the Demon King Part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see Part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗧𝗏 WhattPad. So let's start the video. In our world, at the age of 16, we are allowed to leave home and start a journey. A journey to find your place in the world, a journey to leave your mark. Some people begin at 16 and finish at 17, others on the other hand journey for their entire lives. The greatest person to ever journey was 𝗏𝗵𝗃. He started his journey at 16 like many others. People believed he was useless and wouldn't make a difference in our world. But later on he ended up defeating 𝗏𝗏, the strongest demon of the hell world, who sought to destroy all living things on earth and turn it into a hell wonderland for his demons, 𝗏𝗏. But 𝗏𝗏𝗃 had a different idea and defeated him with his powerful weapon, one for all. Now, I don't think I'll make as much of a difference on our world as 𝗏𝗏𝗃 did, but I want to make a difference, whether it is big or small. I am an elf and my name is Izuku Midoriya. In my life it's just me and my mum. Oh, and of course my two best friends, Iida and Ochaco. Yesterday was my 16th birthday and my mum is finally letting me leave for a journey after hours of begging. Stay safe, Izuku. My mum screamed before she blew her nose into a tissue she was holding in her hand. Her nose was red from blowing it so much and her green hair was all messy. She had teardrops on her pink apron. I love you. I turned around and smiled at her. I love you too. I grinned and started running, holding my sack with food and resources around my back. I happily ran until a rock got in my way and I tripped, dropping everything onto the floor. Deku. A small voice called out. You okay? It was Ochaco. She looked at me with her pink cheeks and big brown eyes. She held out a hand for me. Ochaco was a witch, so she wore a loose, peach, long-sleeved shirt dress which fell below her knees, a brown belt and a pinkish-red robe which had a hood pointed like a witch's hat. She held her broom in her left hand. I gladly took her hand and got up. You can't be so clumsy, Midoriya-kun. We are 16 now, we need to take responsibility for our actions. Iida fixed his glasses on his face. I brushed off my dark green elf pants and light green vest. I picked up my white glove which fell off from the fall and put it back on. Ochaco helped me pick up all my things. Shall we head off now? Iida asked. I nodded. Iida, Ochaco and I went to the same school as children and were best friends since the beginning. Iida was the son of a great knight named Tensei Iida. Ochaco was the daughter of a witch family, and I, Izuku Midoriya, was the son of a lonely elf which lived in the middle of the forest. We started on our journey by traveling through existing roads. Once sunset had arrived, we found a small cave to rest in. Iida started a fire whilst Ochaco and I set up the sleeping bags. Can you really believe we're starting our journey? She squealed. I'm so excited. Hey, yeah, same. I replied, smiling. I'm still surprised that my mum allowed me. Well, you are 16, she should understand that you must have independence. Iida said in his matter-of-fact tone. Are you nearly done with the fire, Iida? Ochaco asked. Yes, I am. Oh yay, I'm freezing. She huddled up by the fire. Come to think of it, so am I. I felt my freezing hands and sat down next to her. Iida sat down next to me. Just then I heard whimpering. Ochaco was crying. Shit. Are you okay? I asked, not knowing what to do. I'm fine, I was too embarrassed to admit it, but it's my first time being away from home. She admitted tearfully. It's fine, Uraraka-san. We're here with you, your best friends. And you won't be gone forever, you can always visit your parents and your home. Iida comforted. She wiped her tears away. Heh, thanks guys, you might not understand, but I really needed that. In pity, I hugged her and we began a group hug. Oh okay, I can't breathe now, I managed to spit out as Iida began tightening his hug. Oh, my apologies. He fixed his glasses again. Iida grew up in a rich family, so he had the tendency to use regal-sounding word choices, such as, may I, or, my apologies, or, shall we continue? I liked it though, it made me feel fancy. Out of the blue, I suddenly started hearing clattering noises. "Hey, do you guys hear that?" I asked quietly. "Hear what?" Ochaco asked. "Clack, clack, the clacking sounds?" Iida asked. I nodded to his question. "Oh, it's just the rocks from the back wall falling apart." I looked behind me. What was originally a cave wall had fallen apart to show a golden chest. "What on earth is that?" I asked. I'll admit I was scared. "Only one way to find out," Iida said as he cautiously approached the chest. He carefully lifted the lid. Nothing came out, so Ochaco and I walked over and peeked in. There was an old-looking scroll. "What on earth?" I said as I picked it up. "No. Midoriya. It might be dangerous." Iida warned, but nothing happened. "Huh, there's nothing dash, young ones," a deep voice called out. I screamed very high-pitched and dropped the scroll. "I can feel that." The voice called out again. "Who's there?" Ochaco fearfully asked. "Down here." Where?" I called out. "Down here." The voice yelled louder. I stared at scroll and raised a brow at Iida, who just shrugged. I carefully picked the scroll up. And Lord and behold, it was All Might. All Might. We all screamed. "Yes. It is I, All Might, making a creepy appearance." He smiled his signature smile. "What are you doing in a scroll?" I asked. "Are you dead? What happened to you? You just suddenly disappeared dash. Hold on, one question at a time." "Sorry. Firstly, what are your names?" he asked us. "I'm Izuku Midoriya." "Ochaco Uraraka, Tenya Iida, sir." Iida saluted. "Well then, young Midoriya, young Uraraka, and young Iida. I have a request of you." "Yes. I want you to defeat 𝗓𝗏 once and for all." His eyes went dark. "Hey, wait, what?" We yelled in surprise. "You see, I'm sure you guys know of my story, of how I defeated 𝗓𝗏 with one for all. But you don't know the truth." "The truth?" "You see, one for all is a powerful weapon that can create good in the world, but used incorrectly can cause great damage. I did not know of this when I first used it. I was an amateur. I did manage to defeat 𝗓𝗏, but it was only for a short period of time. I had everything I needed: strength, courage, intelligence. But I lacked one thing, and that thing got me stuck in here, in this scroll. I was lacking friendship. It may sound cheesy, but trust me when I say, more can be accomplished when you are with others and not on your own. And you three showed great friendship right then. Something I have not seen in such a long time. Kids today are so selfish, so needy. They seem to want everything for themselves. Yes, there are those who do get along with others, but they seem to do it for the sake of themselves. They don't want to be lonely in life, so they become friends with others. But you three, I believe you may just be able to do the job. Of course you can't do it yourself." We stared at him in shock. "What do you mean by ourselves?" "I want you to gather a group of people in this world. 𝗓𝗏 may be powerful, but he has a weakness. He is by himself. The more people you have, the better. And I have just one person in mind, a couple actually, but I believe he'll be useful. This boy is troubled. He has a secret he has been keeping from everyone for years. Even his so-called friends. I want you to find him and bring him with you. He is key to the defeat of 𝗓𝗏. "And who is this boy?" Ochaco asked. "I don't know." "Wait, what?" We screamed in disbelief. "I do not know details. All I know is from what I sense. This boy, he is unique. You'll know who he is once you find him. I don't know an exact location, but I can send you heading the right way." He asked us to take him out of the cave. We lifted the scroll up and showed it around the dark forest that was around the cave. The path was not very far from the cave. You could still see it. He pointed north towards a place very far away. "That is where you will find him." We all looked at each other and nodded. "We won't let you down, All Might." He smiled at us. "I know you won't. 𝗓𝗏 equals 𝗓𝗏. The next morning, Ochaco, Iida, and I began our journey north, looking for the boy All Might asked us to search for. We still had no idea what he looked like, so, although no one would admit it, we were all afraid that we would end up with the wrong person. The journey was confusing and unknowing. No one knew where we were going, not even All Might did. All he said was, "Go north." We walked for the whole day, but the forest which we were in was humanless. It was just trees, trees and more trees. "This is hopeless." Ochaco groaned as she dragged her feet across the ground. "How do we know that the All Might was real? He could be a fake for all we know. And you can't even say he knew our names because he didn't. He doesn't even know what the person we are looking for looks like." "Uraraka-san does have a good point, Midoriya-kun," Iida admitted. "This guy could just be a fraud." I stared at them. "You guys make good points, but we won't know for sure if we don't search. What if he is the real deal? What if All for One really is back? We might as well be ready." They stared uncertainly at me. "Shrugged. Come on guys, we got this far, we can't turn around now." I pleaded. They nodded at me. "For you Midoriya/Deku." I smiled. "Hey wait, what's that?" Ochaco called out. I turned around as she stopped walking and was far behind us. "What's what?" I asked, walking to her. I looked to where she was pointing. There it was, a weird humanoid monster. "Those are 𝗵𝗲." I screamed. "𝗵𝗲?" Iida asked. "They are AFO's minions. They live in the Hell world, which means," I trailed off from worry. "AFO really is here," Ochaco breathed. I gulped. "Correct. Damn it, if demons are already here then that means AFO must be close." Iida snarled. "We need to hurry on finding these people All Might chose if that's the case." "Yes, but where are they going?" I observed their behavior. The one we saw before was actually part of a group and they were all headed in one direction. "Only one way to find out," Iida said. We sneaked behind the group of 𝗵𝗲 which led us deeper into the forest. Since the trees were too thick and tall, the sun was blocked out, the area was very dark. "Stay there. Don't move." A voice called out. I peeked behind the tree to see a boy around my age and a little boy behind him. The older boy had red hair on his left side and white on his right. He was wearing noble-looking clothes and had a burn mark on the left side of his face. He held a sword in his left hand. His right arm seemed to have a deep gash flowing with blood. He must have gotten bitten by a 𝗵𝗲 or scratched by one with sharp claws. Behind him, the little boy had short black hair, a white collared t-shirt, dark gray shorts and big black boots. On his head he wore a red hat. He was clutching onto the older boy's shirt. "It'll be fine." The older boy smiled at the younger, who gained the courage to let go of his shirt. Suddenly, a 𝗵𝗲 jumped at them, but the older boy's reflexes were too fast and he stabbed it in the heart, causing it to fall to the ground. "We need to help them," Ochaco whispered to me. "That guy doesn't look like he can go on much longer." I gulped and nodded. "But how? We don't have any weapons." Iida whispered from a tree over. I looked around the area, scanning for possible weapons. Then, a pile of rocks gained my attention. "Over here." I called over to Iida and Ochaco. We all grabbed a few rocks each and nodded to each other. I heard a high-pitched scream from the little boy and thought of it as my cue. I ran into the area filled with 𝗵𝗲. "Over here, idiots!" I screamed, throwing rocks at a few 𝗵𝗲. I could see that the older boy was confused but realized we were trying to distract the 𝗵𝗲 and nodded. As some 𝗵𝗲 chased me, Ochaco jumped out. "Wrong side." She screamed and threw more rocks at them. She continued running with a few chasing her until she reached Iida. With all the 𝗵𝗲 distracted by Iida, we went up to the boy. "You guys are crazy." He sighed. "He's going to get killed." "No, he won't." I smiled at him. "He's Tenya Iida, younger brother of Tensei Iida. He won't get killed that easily." "Are you okay?" Ochaco asked, pointing at his cut. "That looks pretty deep." "No, it doesn't dash." Ochaco touched it and he winced. "Never mind. Well, we have to get you guys out of here. Can I borrow your sword? I don't think you'll be able to continue to fight in that condition." He looked at me with uncertainty. "How can I trust you?" I sighed with anger. "It's either you get killed with this boy right here or you at least have a chance at trying to escape." "Idiot." I covered my mouth immediately after what I had said. Well, then he slowly handed his sword to me but still had an uncertain look on his face. The little boy grabbed his hand and we started running. We were pretty deep into the forest, so we were running for a while. I messed up suddenly. A 𝗵𝗵𝗲 appeared out of nowhere and began charging at us. I stared at it, unknowing what to do. I wanted to act tough, but I had no idea how to use a sword. "Kill it," the little boy yelled. I heard the older boy sigh. He let go of the younger boy's hand and snatched the sword from my hand with teeth. He charged at the 𝗵𝗵𝗲, which jumped to dodge it. Swiftly, he jumped too and sliced the 𝗵𝗵𝗲 in half, landing on his knee. Who's the idiot now? I stared. Could he be the one? I looked over to my right to see an opening, over there. I screamed. He looked over and nodded. I grabbed the little boy's hand and ran as fast as I could towards the opening into the clearing. Once we were out, Iida came after us. I got most of them out, but there are still a couple left. He panted. I looked behind him. There were at least 10 𝗵𝗵𝗲s left. "Does that look like a couple to you?" Ochaco screamed. "Compared to what we had before, it is a couple." He screamed back. "Finish them, Iida." I screamed. He stared at me. "I can't." "What? Why?" I realized he was clutching his right arm, as if in pain. They caught me off guard and smashed me into a tree, and then a branch fell and landed on it. I winced. What are we going to do? They may be slow, but they're getting close, and they seem to be very good at combat. "Leave this to me." It was the older boy. He was grinning. "It's been a while since I've gotten to battle for real." He got into a fighting stance. "Wait, you can't, your arm." Ochaco warned. "It's just a scratch. Your friend has a broken arm, and I doubt you two know how to fight with a sword." He glared at me. "If you could, we wouldn't be in this much of a mess." He yelled at us before turning around. "Just take 𝗂𝐴 and hide behind a tree or something. If something happens, just run to the town, which isn't far from here, and give him to his aunt. But I doubt anything bad'll happen," he said confidently. "This'll be over in a sec." We took 𝗂𝐴 and hid behind a tree and watched the action. He charged at the 𝗵𝗵𝗲, who sped up to match his speed. Clack, clack, some rocks came falling from the tree and landed on my head. "Ow, that's him," a deep voice yelled. "He's the one." I looked up at a branch and there was a scroll. I opened it to reveal All Might. "Wait, him." Iida pointed at 𝗂𝐴. "No, not him." I lifted the scroll to show the other boy who just finished fighting all the 𝗵𝗵𝗲. "That quick." I muttered breathlessly. All Might smirked. "He's the one, all right. Now, young Midoriya, put me into your bag, we'll talk again soon." I did as he said and put the scroll into my bag. "Showdown!" 𝗂𝐴 yelled, running up to the boy. We followed behind him. "Wait, Showdown," Iida thought. Half red, half white hair, one gray, one blue eye, incredible at sword and hand-to-hand combat, Showdown Todoroki. He bowed. "Guys, bow." "How, why?" "This guy is a prince." My eyes widened. I called a prince an idiot. See, I knew I messed up. Ochaco and I immediately bowed. Showdown Todoroki groaned. "This is why I tell you to call me to do." "I'm sorry. I was really worried, Oni-san." "Oni-an, wait, Prince Showdown, is he your brother?" I asked. "No, he is not. His aunt is my friend and I had to take care of him for the day, but he decided to run off. Also, it's Todoroki." I looked over at Ochaco, who was pretty quiet for some time. She seemed to be deep in thought. "I'll ask her what's up later. Well, I have to return him to his aunt now. She's going to be very worried." He started walking off with 𝗂𝐴. "Wait," I called out. "Izuku?" Iida asked. "Let us come. There might be more 𝗵𝗵𝗲s out there and we need to get more resources at the next town anyway." "Whatever floats your boat." He shrugged. It wasn't a long walk before we arrived at the town. It wasn't very big. We walked past a few houses, some people glancing at us as we walked past. "What's with all the people looking?" I asked Iida as Ochaco was still being silent. "Maybe it's because we're with the prince." He whispered. "Maybe, but I don't think so." We arrived at a small house where a woman was waiting. She had brown hair, brown eyes, pink paint under her eyes, and she wore a cat costume. "𝗂𝐴!" she screamed, running up and hugging 𝗂𝐴. "You're okay." She smacked him on the head. "I was so worried, Naya." "Sorry, Auntie." "It's okay, my little baby 𝗂𝐴." She babied. "She looks like a cat and even acts like one with the mood swings," Iida whispered. Now off to your room. You're grounded. We all sweat dropped. Thank you so much, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. I was so worried about him. It's fine, she gasped. Your arm. I need to fix that. Quick. She circled him. He just looked uncomfortable. I have to go, don't worry about it, Sasaki. But why? I can't stay here for long, father's soldiers will be coming across here very soon. I can't afford to let them find me. She frowned. I understand. And are these your friends? She pointed at us. We met in the forest. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm Iida, Tenya Iida. I nudged Ochaco. Oh, I'm Ochaco Uraraka. Well, I hope you guys have a good stay here if you're staying, or have a good trip around the world. She punched the air before skipping back inside the house. Soldiers to find you? I asked, trying to figure out what he meant. Are you a wanted criminal or something? He sighed. Follow me, I'll show you. He untied a white horse from the stable next to the house, and we followed behind him as he rode towards a certain place. When we arrived there, it was sunset. We stood at the edge of a cliff, and not very far was a giant castle. Why are we here? I asked. Well, wait. Ochaco finally talked. I've been wanting to ask for a while, but I wasn't sure. Didn't the Prince Todoroki disappear a while ago? Todoroki looked at her and sighed. Yes. Prince Todoroki disappeared 3 months ago. All that is left is 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. We all stared confusingly the boy sitting on the white horse. You see, growing up, all my father cared about was a powerful heir to the throne. First in line was my big brother Tenya. But everyone knows what happened to him. Second in line was Fuyumi, but having a female leading our country seemed crazy to everyone. Third was Natsuo, but he decided to go on a journey and never come back. So my father decided on me. It wasn't very hard to learn what to do. I was a quick learner. But he only thought of me as a tool to continue on the Todoroki family. In fact, he only married my mother in order to have children. There was no love at all. Last year, I turned 16, but my father refused to let me go on a journey in case I would pull a Natsuo and never return. So he locked me in the castle. Eventually, I got sick of it, and 3 months ago I ran away. Ever since then he's been sending guards around the globe to look for me. As you can see, the castle isn't very far from the town we were just in. That means that in order to get back to the castle, the guards have to pass through the village. He pointed to the castle. Hey, it's funny. I didn't even tell my best friends about my past, yet I told it to you, people I've never met before. Heck, I'm still not sure if I can trust you, but I don't know, something seems to be screaming very faintly, trust them. He admitted. Todoroki, I was still in shock but kept my composure. We are on a mission. His head perked up. You may be familiar with All for One, the demon which rampaged through Earth years ago. Now he's come back. We've been sent by All Might to gather a group of people who he feels are strong and worthy enough to help defeat AFO. And you have been chosen, what do you say? Ochaco whimpered. How do I know that you're not lying to me? Oh. I opened my pack and took out the scroll with All Might on it. Hello, young Todoroki. He smiled widely. Todoroki jumped even though he was on a horse and smiled while sighing. Even if you didn't have proof, I would have said yes anyway. I've seen the demons and I want to be a hero too. He smiled at us. Really? Ochaco asked. He nodded. Yay. We all screamed. I started crying. Todoroki, my tears shot into the sky. Why are you crying? Are you hurt? He asked. Speaking of hurt. Iida. Todoroki-kun. Let me heal your wounds. I'm a witch, I have potions which can help you. As Ochaco healed Iida and Todoroki, and I dried my eyes, All Might gave us new instructions. This next one, it is also a boy. You will find him in the Dragonlands. The Dragonlands? Todoroki asked. You know where it is? I asked. Yeah, I've been there once for official business. Well, we know where to go now. Good luck, young Midoriya, young Iida, young Uraraka, and now, young Todoroki. All Might narrated. And so, the three added one more person to their group, the infamous Shudo Todoroki. What will happen next? No one knows. Why do you have to narrate everything? Izuku. And why are you in a scroll? Todoroki. Long story saved for another time. No. Shooto screamed as he pressed the A button as hard as he could so that he could go faster. That's what you get for choosing Toad, Shooto. Natsuo smirked as he passed Shooto's cart. Yeah, well guys, Fuyumi is still first. Tuya complained as he looked to the side of the screen to see what place everyone was in. Fuyoshi, first. Walatoya, second Natsu Kong, third Shooto, fourth. The three boys started teaming up against Fuyumi, getting as many power-ups as they could and using them to surpass her. Oops. She exclaimed as she reached her final lap. No. Guys. Tuya yelled. Tension built up as they all began their final lap. CRP, CRP, CRP. Natsu cursed as Shooto passed him. Don't you dare, little bro. I'm watching you. Tuya said when he saw Shooto had reached third place. Yeah right. Shooto smirked. Finished. Fuyumi celebrated, bringing her knees up on the couch and punching the air. No. Tuya groaned. Finished too. Shooto screamed. Wait, what? Natsuo growled. I was in front of you. You weren't looking clearly. Shooto poked his tongue out. Natsuo glared at him. He just smirked. No. No way. Tuya stared at the screen in disbelief. I was second. I got a power-up and bet you, hee. Shooto giggled evilly. Darn you, little bro. Love you too, big bro. Tuya continued to stare in disbelief before looking away. Anyway, he sighed. I've got to go now. I have training with father. You're always at training. Shooto complained. It's not fair. Hell well, you just wait, little bro. I'm gonna get into you. And become a pro hero. Then we can spend all the time we want together. I promise. Shooto smiled widely at his brother. Yay. But of course that never happened. 1 month later, a 5-year-old Shooto knelt down on the ground, vomit dripping from his mouth as he heard his mother being kicked into the wall. You promised. Todoroki led the way as we headed towards the Dragon Lands. Are we there yet? Ochaco complained for what seemed like the 5,000th time. No, Ochaco, be patient, we shall arrive soon. Replied an irritated Iida. But my legs are tired, she complained again. Would you like to ride on my horse? Todoroki offered, pointing to his white-coated horse. Really? She glimmered. Yeah, why not? Yay. She took the reins from Todoroki's hands and climbed onto the horse in less than a second, leaving Todoroki with wide eyes, sweat dropping. If you were that tired, you could have just asked me from the start. He chuckled awkwardly. I could, but I didn't. Hey wait guys, are we here? I pointed ahead of us where the bright green grass turned into a dull brown. Fire came out of the ground and loud roars could be heard from miles away. It was the most sudden change in biome. This is it. Todoroki said. We all started walking in when I realized it was just me walking further. Iida, Ochaco and Todoroki were just staring at me, wide-eyed and sweaty. What's wrong guys? I asked. Let's go. Ochaco whimpered. What? Midoriya-kun, seriously. What is 𝐈-? A loud roar stopped me mid-sentence. There was a large, red dragon in front of me. So close that if I reached my hand out I could touch it. Its large, yellowish teeth were sharp and dripping with saliva. And a nice dragon. I chuckled awkwardly and terrified. It roared loudly once again before everything turned black. When I woke I was inside a cage along with Iida, who was still unconscious. We must have been captured. The cage was still outside, but we were surrounded by lava. It would be impossible to escape. I looked at my hands. To my surprise, they weren't tied. Was this person a newbie at capturing people? I shrugged the thought and carefully walked over to Iida. Iida always had nightmares as a child and would usually smack you in the face if you aren't cautious around him when he's asleep, so I tried to keep my distance. I tapped him on the shoulder before quickly running away. He groaned but stayed asleep. I walked back again and tapped him again, this time not running away. He must still be 𝗓𝗏. Suddenly a hand shot up and smacked me in the face. Iida screamed. Oh, Midoriya. You scared me. I rubbed my face and groaned. Thanks a lot 𝗓𝗏. Who's he? Iida asked. Who? Him. He pointed behind me to see a sleeping spiky-haired, red-headed boy. I hadn't noticed him before. I don't can dash. Hello. Iida has already sped towards him and started poking him. Hello. The boy groaned and opened his eyes. He screamed, looked at his hands, up at us and clutched his head. What? Who are you? He mumbled a bunch of questions. I'm Iida. Iida introduced. This is Midoriya. The boy nodded. I'm 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵. Nice to meet you, 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵. I smiled. Do you know where we are? He raised a brow. We're in the Dragon Lord's dungeon. Iida and I glanced at each other. Dragon Lord. I remembered what All Might was saying. The next person is found in the Dragonlands. He is their lord. Definitely him. Where can we find this Dragon Lord? I asked. Why, you want to meet the Dragon Lord? Yes, where can we see him? But you can't. Why not? Because he's the Dragon Lord. I raised a brow and heard Iida sigh behind me. You're too pushy, Midoriya. He looked at the red head in front of us. You seem to know a lot about this Dragon Lord. How so? He asked. Well, let's say I'm basically his servant. Whoa, he put his own servant in the dungeons. I half yelled. No, he doesn't usually, but I did something very bad and he sent me here. So, can you get us out? Iida asked. I looked at the boy. I can, but I'm not sure if I should, please. I pleaded. The world is in danger. All for One has returned and we need your help to find this Dragon Lord. He is a key to defeating AFO. All for One. Like the rampaging demon. He looked at us with unbelieving eyes. I don't believe you. Just ask our friend Todoroki. He's gone face to face with a 𝗵𝗵𝗃, I gasped. We forgot about Ochaco and Todoroki. Iida widened his eyes and cursed. Todoroki like the royal family. You have royalty with you. Do you know what the Dragon Lord will do if he finds out that you have royalty with you? It's a long story. Just please, please, please. Help us, he frowned and sighed. Fine. I grinned. Thank you. Thank you. But if the Dragon Lord doesn't listen, I'm not covering for you guys. That's fine. He got up and pushed the door open. My jaw dropped. It was open the whole time. No, not really. It only opens if you're, he trailed off. Nothing. Okay. Well, let's go. He walked out. Hey, wait. There's lava dash. He walked straight over the lava, almost as if he was floating. There's an invisible bridge over the lava. Don't worry, it's safe. I skeptically walked over to find that I wasn't falling into the lava. I gestured for Iida to join me. We walked to dry land and continued walking. I started dozing off. Hey 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵, where are we? I looked up to find that 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵 had disappeared. 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵. Where did he go dash? My, who is this? A deceiving voice muttered quietly. I whipped my head around to see a spiky-haired blonde standing with 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵. You did good, I'm proud of you. A bright light appeared and instead of 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵, there stood a large, red dragon, the red dragon from before. 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵, you were a dragon. I exclaimed wide-eyed. That's so cool. I whipped out my notebook. Please tell me, what is it like? I started scribbling some notes. Midoriya, I don't think this is the time, Iida said, grabbing my shoulder. I see you have royalty with you, huh? The spiky-haired blonde said. Oh, a Todoroki even. This is great. With him, along with all of you, he smirked and didn't continue talking. I gulped. 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵. Put them into the dungeon. The real one this time. The dungeon door slammed shut once we were shoved in. This time, the dungeon was underground and was basically pitch black. The corners were dark, but the front wasn't due to a torch on the wall in front of the door. They had a plan the whole time. I smacked the wall. Calm down, Midoriya. I'm sure we'll find a way out. I doubt you will. A voice called from the shadows. A tall, purple-haired boy walked out. He had dark bags under his eyes and his hair seemed to have a life of its own. I've been here for years, I would know. Iida was cautious this time, afraid of another 𝗓𝐭𝐴𝐵 incident. Who are you? Me. Shinso Hitoshi. Are you working with that dragon lord too? I asked. No. He imprisoned me when I did something very bad. 𝗓𝗪𝗀 shrugged. How can we trust you? Iida muttered. You could just be pretending like Kirishima. 𝗓𝗪𝗀 raised a brow before holding his hand out and showed an orange wristband. On it wrote, life sentence. Life sentence, just what did you do? I might have murdered one of his soldiers. At least that's what he says. You what? I yelled. He got in my way. He said as if it was a normal thing to murder someone. Plus, he had a really stupid name. Kaminari. Who the hell names their child that? Despite his attempts, I could tell he was lying. I sighed and took my notebook out. So let me get this straight, these people, well, dragons, well, they can shift. He rolled his eyes. Isn't it obvious? I wrote down some stuff. We need to get out of here. Iida spoke. Clearly. I mean it. Todoroki and Ochaco are out there. If these people can look like humans, then we're in big trouble. Not to mention I'm hungry. Everyone fell to the ground. What? Oh, I told you guys. There's no way out. I examined the perimeter of the room. Never say never. It seemed to be normal when I saw an odd brick at the back wall. I walked up to it and tapped it. Nothing. I pulled it. Nothing. Push it. The ground began to shake and the bricks fell one by one until there was no longer a wall and there was a tunnel. How could I have missed that? 𝗓𝗪𝗀 breathed. You gave up too soon. I said to him, although I had no idea how I saw that either, before walking into the tunnel, followed by Iida. I turned around. You coming? He looked hesitant. I've been here for years, I don't know if I dash. I grabbed his wrist and began pulling him along with me. You've been here for years, you deserve to get out. He sighed and allowed me to pull him along the corridor. Do you know where we're going? Iida asked. I stopped for a second. Nope. He face-bombed. Okay, then let me get this straight. 𝗓𝗪𝗀 said. I'm following two guys I've never met before out of a prison where I've been at for years and never found an exit, but somehow you guys found an exit that I missed, even though I'm convinced that wasn't there anyway, and none of you have any idea of where we're going. I clicked my tongue. Basically. He stared at me. I'm going back. Wait, no. Oh. Is anyone out there? Please help me. A muffled voice called out. Who said that? I asked. Not me. 𝗓𝗪𝗀 shrugged. Iida shook his head. In the wall. Which wall? This wall. I looked to the left wall. Nothing. To the right. I screamed as I saw a face on the wall. What the? I tapped it. At first nothing happened, but a couple seconds later a scroll fell onto the floor. I recognized it and picked it up. All Might. I exclaimed. Young Midoriya. Thank the heavens. He smiled widely. What happened? Why are you in the wall? It's a long story. You see, we were attacked by that giant dragon and I fell out of your bag. I was kicked around and tried to teleport myself to where you were. I used a spell to find out where you were and found a wall and decided to break the wall down. So that was why the wall fell. I pieced the puzzle together. Continuing, young Uraraka was taken by the creepy spiky blonde. Young Todoroki went after her but they haven't returned. Worry filled me. Change of plans, guys. We're looking for Todoroki and Ochaco before we leave. Okay with that, 𝗓𝗪𝗀. I looked over to see fear planted on his face. The scroll was talking. Oh, yeah, this is All Might. Long story for later, we need to go. Oi, 𝗓𝗪𝗀. Hurry. A yellow-haired boy called out to a moody purple-haired boy. Coming. The boy mumbled boredly. Don't need to scream so much, Kaminari. Oh, whatever. Just hurry. Or else we'll miss the annual fireworks. The two walked up a hill just in time for the first firework to pop. It was colorful, just like a rainbow. Can you believe it's been 3 years since Sir Bakugo saved us from AFO? Kaminari asked 𝗓𝗪𝗀. Heh, it feels like time has hardly passed. Or maybe it's just because dragons age very slowly. Kaminari eyed him. Stop rubbing the fact that you're a dragon shifter and I'm not in my face. It's not fair. He pouted. 𝗓𝗪𝗀 chuckled. Fine. Well, do you want to go closer to the fireworks? He asked. Kaminari looked at him and raised a brow. How would we do that? Qinsō smirked, and after a bright, purple light, there stood a large purple dragon. The dragon motioned for Kaminari to get on, and so he did. They flew into the dark, blue sky and watched the fireworks fly and explode into millions and millions of colors. It was almost as if they landed in Oz. Kaminari smiled at the sight like a goofy 2-year-old. Thanks for taking me up here, bro. Qinsō smiled to himself. No problem, bro. They returned to their house that night to find that their adopted mother, who was also pure human, was dead. Her lifeless body lay on the floor, leaning against the wall. Her arm had been bitten off. Mum. Kaminari rushed over to her side and checked for a pulse. He fell silent. She's gone. Qinsō looked around for someone who could be responsible but failed to do so. Suddenly, the door broke down and out came the police. Sir Bakugo is taking anyone who is pure human. Hand anyone over at once, otherwise there shall be consequences. Qinsō pulled Kaminari protectively behind him. And why does Sir Bakugo want that? The humans have declared war on the dragon kind, so we shall declare war back by murdering every last one of their kind that resides within us. Starting tomorrow, it shall be illegal to be in your human form and to be around humans in general. Kaminari growled. And that's why you killed our mother. No. That woman got in our way, so we dealt with her accordingly. Now, hand over any humans. Qinsō turned around. On my signal you run. Understand me? He whispered to Kaminari. What about you? I'll be fine ready. No. I'm not going with 𝗧𝗪𝗏. Qinsō pushed him past the guards and out the doorframe. Run. Stop him. The guard yelled. But a light flashed and a purple dragon stood in front of them, blocking their way. The rest of them transformed too. You've made a mistake. They growled, but he didn't respond. He just stared at them with cold eyes. Iida, All Might, Qinsō and I found where Ochaco and Todoroki were being held. It was a prison similar to their first one, and the boy from earlier was with them. It was then I could take a good look at him. He had spiky, blonde hair and BLD red eyes which could pierce through your skull. He had tattoos on his arms and dragon tooth earrings. Our friends will find us. Just you wait, Sir Bakugo. Ochaco spat his name like it was venom. So Bakugo's his name, I mumbled. How are we going to get those two back? We can always just charge in head-on. Qinsō said. No. That is the best way of dying. Iida argued. Well, it's better to die knowing you tried even though you knew you'd die rather than have a plan and the plan failed and you need to have a feeling of doubt just before you die. None of that made sense. We live in a world of dragon shifters. Does anything make sense? I thought about it but shook it off. Enough fighting, you're both right. We can't go in without a plan, but we can't spend too long making a plan too. So, here's what I came up with. Iida, you're fast, really fast. So while Qinsō and I distract Bakugo, you get Todoroki and Ochaco out. Got it? He nodded. Qinsō, you and I will distract him. Just come up with anything that will get his attention away from the prison. So even singing. I could see a smirk form on his lips. No, please, no singing. Fine. Okay, plan in place, guys. Yep. Sure. Then let's do this, nobody get killed. Qinsō and I crept around trying to get close to the prison. I found a rock and threw it at the angry, blonde cactus. But who threw that? He growled, looking around. You're gonna die. He walked over to where we were and I saw Iida creeping towards the prison, getting ready to free the other two. I hid behind a rock trying to avoid the Dragon Lord. I know you're there. Just get out now and maybe I'll consider a less harsh punishment. I gulped and peeked on the side of the rock to see Iida opening the lock and Ochaco stepping out. I sighed in relief when Bakugo turned around and saw what was happening. He gasped angrily. Kirishima! He yelled. Kirishima started running towards Iida, Ochaco, and Todoroki. No! I screamed. I was pushed back by a harsh force and bright light. By the time I regained my sight, Kirishima had transformed and hovered over the cage. But he wasn't charging at it. I saw a smaller, yet very large purple dragon underneath him, standing over the prison so he couldn't get to it. I didn't need to think to realize who it was. Kirishima. Bakugo yelled and Kirishima flew towards him. He jumped onto Kirishima's back and headed towards Shinso. Shinsu. Iida. I screamed and ran towards them. The fight between us and Bakugo turned into a fight between the dragons, accompanied by Bakugo. He was a dragon shifter the whole time. I heard Iida mutter in disbelief. Yeah, although it seems it was obvious the whole time, I said, recalling how obvious it seemed. Why else would he have been trapped in that cage? If Bakugo was a dragon lord, I don't think a human could easily kill his subjects. Either way, we need to leave now. I looked at Ochaco and Todoroki. All of us. They nodded and we ran over to Shinso. Shinsu. I yelled. We need to leave now. Oh no you don't. Bakugo jumped down from Kirishima's head and pulled out a scythe. First you trespass into my lands, try to escape from my prison, and now you try to help my other prisoners escape. You all deserve to die. I gulped as he charged at us. Suddenly, a scroll, the scroll with All Might in it, appeared in front of me and it radiated a yellow light. I groaned and opened my eyes. I was in a white room and no one else was there. Guys. I called out. Ochaco. Iida. Todoroki. I whipped my head around to see a tall, blonde boy which looked like a younger version of All Might opening a wooden door. Are you really going on a journey? Another boy who looked similar to him asked. Well yeah. But mother and father said you couldn't. So what? I'm 16. I should be allowed. The other boy frowned. Toshinori. Just tell her I went off or something, yeah. I don't know, please, Itsuki. Itsuki groaned. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this. Just. Thank you bro. Toshinori ran out of the room, leaving Itsuki behind. I watched as everything faded away. What is this, a memory? From who the? Itsuki. Where is Toshinori? A tall, brunette, middle-aged woman yelled at Itsuki. He went out, she smacked him. But where? I don't know. He wouldn't tell me. I heard another smack but everything had already faded away. Itsuki. I turned around to see Toshinori. Please. You need to stop this. They were in the middle of the battlefield and there were many lifeless bodies around them. No, Toshinori. I will no longer listen to you. I looked over but instead of Itsuki I saw a tall man in black clothing and a black mask. It's no longer Itsuki, he smirked. It's all for one. I gasped. Wait, does that mean that? I looked at Toshinori. That is All Might. Itsuki, Toshinori frowned. I'm sorry. He took out a large sword and it began glowing yellow. I was nearly blinded because of how bright it was. What? I heard Itsuki yell. Darn you Toshinori. I will get you back. The light died down and Itsuki was nowhere to be found. It's no longer Toshinori, he imitated. It's All Might. Some civilians popped out of the background. Why, you saved us. One of them yelled. Who are you? Another asked. Toshinori smiled. It's fine now because I, All Might, am here. He raised his sword and everyone cheered for him. Everything started fading away. Wait. I called out. I need to know more. But as soon as I blinked I was back to reality. What just happened? I heard Iida ask. I turned around to face him. You saw it too. We all did, Ochaco said. Deku, what was that? I think it was All Might. No. My horse. Todoroki called out, watching his horse walk away. You're with All for One. Bakugo jumped down from Kirishima who had stopped fighting with Shinso. I knew I should have killed you. What? We're with All Might. We're trying to stop All for One. Likely story. Do you have any idea what All for One has done to me? Done to my dragons. He took my land away from me. Killed my dragons. Kirishima is the only one left. And that traitor Shinso that you call friend. He worked with AFO and gave Kaminari over to him. Shinso and Kirishima shifted back. What? Shinso asked, yelled. You ordered your guards to take Kaminari away. What the hell? Kaminari was like a brother to me. I would never do that, liar. Bakugo yelled back. Guys. Stop yelling please. I whimpered as Bakugo glared daggers at me. Clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Nope. What I said is right, and you're a traitor, Shinso. How could I be a traitor? Either way, Kaminari made it out safely. Kirishima spoke up. Kaminari, he's safe. Yes. He managed to escape before the soldiers got him. He dropped to the ground in happiness. Yokata, all this time, I thought he was dead. A/N, Yokata, or means thank goodness in Japanese. Victory hand light skin tone. Kirishima, don't tell me you actually believe these idiots. Bakugo yelled. Listen to yourself, Bakugo. If you and Shinso believed two different things, then someone was clearly messing with you. Bakugo grumbled. Fine. I'll hear them out. Thank goodness. I sighed. So we were sent by All Might to find you, Bakugo, and you were meant to help us defeat All for One. So, I'm supposed to go with you. With him. Bakugo growled at Shinso. No, just you. I said. Without Kirishima. Yes. Nope. Why? If Kirishima isn't going, I'm not going. He's the only one I can actually tolerate. But All Might said dash, I groaned. He seemed like a deech and he was a deech. Just let him. Ochaco said. In fact, bring Shinso too. The more the merrier. But All Might said. The scroll suddenly appeared in front of me. All Might said what? Said All Might. You said only to find the Dragon Lord, Dragon Lord. Bakugo smirked at the title. I like it. But I also said you needed to find a group of people to help you defeat All for One. Young Midoriya, who's to say these aren't the chosen ones too? Young Uraraka, good job. I am proud of you. You see people as they are, not as they seem. Not as they seem. I asked. What does that mean? That's for you to figure out. For now, let young Bakugo, Kirishima and Shinso join you. I'm afraid I used up a lot of my power today, so I cannot tell you where the next person is. Just trust in yourselves, I'm sure you'll find him. Wait. I called out, but he had already disappeared. Were you and All for One really brothers? Well, are you ready to head off? Iida asked. But my horsey, Todoroki pouted. We'll have to find him. Okay. Everyone started walking off and I trailed behind. People not as they seem but as they are. What does that mean? Act 1, Todoroki panting. I ran through the forest desperately looking for a place to hide. Damn it, I can't believe they actually found me. I groaned as I ducked under low branches and jumped over fallen logs. It was the middle of day, yet the forest trees were so thick and large that it blocked out the sun, making it seem as if it was the middle of the night. It had been a couple months since I ran away from home, and my father had sent guards to take me back. I managed to keep away from them for quite some time, but today I was unlucky. I was walking through town to buy more supplies. I was having a chat with a nice woman who told me her nephew had gone off into the forest. He apparently hadn't been back for ages, and she was very worried when a guard suddenly started walking down the street. At first, he didn't seem to recognize me. He even came up and had a small conversation with me. Hello, sir. He said. Have you seen a tall, young boy with two-toned hair similar to yours around here? I shook my head. Oh, well, if you do let us know, the king is ordering us to find his missing son. I nodded. Well, have a good day. He started walking away. I thought I was safe, but he stopped and turned around. Realizing he knew who I was, I started sprinting down the market. Hey, stop. Get back here. I heard footsteps come after me and continued running. It's him. Stop that boy. I heard the guard yell to the other guards, and soon multiple footsteps were after me. CRP. I cursed under my breath as my shirt got caught on a branch sticking up from the ground. I quickly ripped it off and hid behind a tree. I closed my eyes and held my breath as I heard footsteps come closer and pass me. Once I could no longer hear anything, I opened my eyes and breathed out. I sighed happily until a dark shadow came over me. I looked up to see a creepy creature with large claws. What the? It raised its arm and tried to cut me. I lifted up my arm, resulting in a deep gash running from the top of my arm down to my elbow. I winced at the pain and tried to kick the creature, but it didn't budge. I turned around and started running away from them. Damn it, I'm just running away from everything today, aren't I? I muttered under my breath. But still those creatures looked familiar. Have I seen them somewhere? Maybe in one of father's books. A 𝗵𝗄 is a disgusting creature. Although it is not common, a 𝗵𝗄 can have large cat-like claws which can easily chop off a human head. What the hell? But 𝗵𝗄s were trapped in hell with 𝗓𝗏. If they're here, then that means no. I skidded to a halt as I stared at the sight in front of me. The 𝗵𝗄 had killed and chopped off every single one of the guards' heads. I gritted my teeth and took a sword from one of the fallen soldiers. I looked behind me to see a large group of 𝗵𝗄 following me. Deciding that wasn't very good, I began running, getting deeper into the forest. I was rather deep when I heard cries for help. Somebody, please, help me. It sounded like a young boy, so I ran after the sound. I found a small boy being surrounded by 𝗵𝗄s, so I sneaked up behind them and slashed their necks. Are you okay? I asked. You're not hurt? And no. He sniffled. I want my auntie. Your auntie? I thought back to the woman I was talking with in town. I know her. Are you her nephew? The one who went into the forest and has been missing ever since. Why? Yeah, okay, well I was cut off by crunching leaves as we were surrounded by 𝗵𝗄. I turned around and gripped my sword, keeping the boy behind me. What's your name? 𝗏𝗏. Okay, 𝗏𝗏. Stay behind me and don't move. Suddenly, a rock was thrown at a 𝗵𝗄 and they began chasing this man. Over here, you idiots. I looked to my right to see a green-haired boy lead the 𝗵𝗄 away. After a bit, he came back. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded. Okay, good. He held out his hand and smiled. I'm Midoriya. Act 2, 𝗬𝗪. I cried, shaking my mother. Please wake up. Please. I shook her violently, but she didn't move. My family and I were dragon shifters. Dragon shifters, in a nutshell, were basically failed 𝗵𝗄 attempts. Before 𝗓𝗏 decided to make 𝗵𝗄 superhuman beings, he had attempted to make them part dragon. Unfortunately, his experiments weren't successful, and instead of creating mindless minions, he created an entire new race. We eventually learned how to speak the language people spoke, and how to eat, drink, sleep and take care of ourselves. Eventually, we became a clan. But the humans did not agree to having a different race among them and started to outcast us. Some humans came into my town. They carried knives and swords and slaughtered every single one of our people. Then they came to my house. I hid in the cupboard as I heard the door come crashing down. Scout the area. Make sure no creature gets out alive. I heard the humans yell, followed by footsteps quickly moving through the house. My older brother covered my mouth with his hand to prevent me from screaming and giving away our hiding place. I found one. I gasped in surprise when a sudden thump was heard. I peeked through the crack in the cupboard to see them holding my mum to the ground. Make sure she doesn't transform. I gasped and begged my older brother to stop them. I knew what they were going to do. They were going to kill my mother. Shoo! He simply whispered, covering my eyes. Good job, men. We've killed every single one of them. I heard a man say. Then, footsteps started walking away and disappeared into the distance. Stay here. My older brother whispered. Don't move until I come back. I nodded and whimpered. I waited. And waited. And waited. But nobody came. I finally gained the courage to go outside of the cupboard. I slowly opened the door as it creaked. Sun rays seeped through the gaps and nearly blinded me. I fully opened the door and stepped out. My balance wasn't very good because I had been in a cramped space for so long, but I could just barely manage. I walked and when I looked down I saw my mum. Mummy! I whimpered, bending over and shaking her. Please wake up, please. But she wouldn't move. I got up and walked outside. It was eerily quiet. This town was usually full of life, but today, there was no life. Someone. I called out. Please help. My mummy won't wake up. I tried to walk around to look for help, but I tripped over a rock and fell to the ground. I cried in agony as I realized no one would come help. Please 𝗵𝗏 kendo somebody. I sniffed and wiped away my tears. Big brother. I whispered, walking back to the cupboard. Please come back. I went back inside the house and went back into the cupboard. Please, I'll wait, I'll be a good boy, I promise. I waited. and waited, and waited. Suddenly, the door swung open. It was a young boy my age. He had electric yellow hair and a large smile. "Mummy, Mummy, there's a boy," he screamed. "What?" A woman came over. "Oh my." She quickly covered me with a blanket. "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly. "Okay, Denki, stay here with him, I'll go look around for more survivors." "Yes, Mum," the boy said. His mother left the room and he looked over at me, extended a hand and smiled. "Are you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Good." He smiled brightly. I could tell it wouldn't be the last time I saw that smile. "I'm Kaminari. Act 3, 𝗵𝘃𝗀. I'm very sorry, 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗀, but I'm afraid your father has passed on." I widened my eyes in disbelief and sprinted to my father's bedroom. But he wasn't there. I looked over to a maid. "Where is he?" "I'm afraid they've taken him away already." The maid whimpered through her tears. "No," I shook my head. "I didn't even get to say goodbye." "I'm very sorry," she broke down crying. "Please excuse me." I stood motionless and in disbelief. Everyone came out of the room. "No, you can't be gone." I remembered the day he had a day off and we went to the town for the first time together since Mum died. "So, what should we do?" he asked me. "Well, you can't go wrong with food." I shrugged. "But we have great food at the palace." "But that food is all fancy food." "I know. You should try ice cream." "Ice cream? Is that a new brand of ice?" "No. It's a food. Come on, let's go get some." I grabbed his arm and started dragging him towards my favorite ice cream shop. My father was the king of the dragon shifters. And I was his only son, the heir. My mother died when I was very young, so I didn't have much memories of her, and my father was always busy, so I wanted this day to be a special one. "Here we are," I announced, pointing at the shop. "Kirishima ice cream. Kirishima ice cream." I frowned. "Do you have to repeat everything I say?" "No, I just want to be able to remember these names." "Okay. Now let's go." I pushed open the door and was met with the smiling face of Mrs. Kirishima. "Hi, Mrs. Kirishima." I waved. "Can I have the usual, please?" I asked. "Of course, sir." She scooped out 2 scoops of strawberry ice cream and 1 scoop of mint. "Thank you," I said, taking it. "And what would you like, my king?" What he had," my dad announced. I laughed at his formality. Mrs. Kirishima gave him the ice cream and we paid for it and headed off. "So, how do you eat it?" my dad asked. "Oh, you just." I licked the ice cream and smiled at the amazing flavor. "Like that?" "Huh?" He copied what I did. He had a frown on for a second, so I thought he didn't like it. "This is amazing," he exclaimed. "Why don't we have this at the castle?" "I know, right?" I laughed. "From now on, this shall be part of the castle menu." He laughed, eating his ice cream once more. But our happiness didn't last long. Soon after, my dad became gravely ill. Leukemia, they called it. A cancer of the blood. They said he didn't have long to live, which is why he wanted to spend as much time with me as possible. I didn't know he would have been gone so soon. I walked over to his bed and grabbed his pillow. It smelled just like him. "Father," I cried. Not long after his death, we had his funeral. And soon, my coronation. I knew I had to be king, but I thought I would have had at least 10 more years before I had to take over. I was nowhere near ready to lead an entire nation. I bowed as the crown was placed upon my head and everyone in the kingdom bowed to me. I winced once I saw Eijiro Kirishima, the son of Mrs. Kirishima, who had died not long before my father did. I heard it was just him now, just like me. After the coronation, I approached him. "Hey," I greeted. Hi, are you a dragon shifter?" "Yeah, well then, I appoint you as my personal guard." "Hang on, what?" "You heard me." "Yeah, but Dash, don't say you don't have military training. I know you're a part of the guard force, so why not get better pay?" The reaction I got was unexpected. He started laughing. "You're not very good at socializing, are you?" He laughed. I grumbled. "Apparently so." "Well then, sir, I accept your offer." He reached out his hand and I took it and shook it. "I'm Kirishima. You want me to come with you?" A tall, bird-headed man asked me. Yes, please. Well, he turned around to his father who was cutting wood. Father, can I? His father stopped and thought. Well, you're 16, aren't you? He asked in a weird accent. Yes. Well, yes. You're allowed to, and it'll be one less mouth to feed. What then? He looked at me and shrugged. You heard the man, the name's 𝗃𝗃𝗵𝗲 by the way. I smiled. Welcome, 𝗃𝗃𝗵𝗲. He went inside his wooden cottage to pack some things and we waited outside. We had now gathered all the people we thought we needed. In total we had about 19 people. There were of course me, Iida, Ochaco, Todoroki, Bakugo, Kirishima and Shinso. But now we had Aoyama, who we found organizing a play that no one went to. Azui, a lake had been clogged off by some beavers who made a dam and she helped us to remove it. Ashido, a dancer who lost all inspiration to continue but we helped her to start again. Ojiro, who was bullied and discriminated for his tail but we helped him to overcome that challenge. Koda, who had an injured animal that we helped to take care of. Sato, someone stole sweets from his store and we helped to catch the culprit. Mineta, he stole sweets from Sato's store and when we caught him he joined us on our journey. Shoji and Jiro, they were aspiring musicians who weren't being noticed by the world and decided to join us instead. Siro, who was having trouble finding the edge of the tape and when Shinso and Todoroki found it for him, he began worshipping them and joined us. Hagakure, surprisingly she didn't have any issue, we just asked her to join and she agreed as with 𝗃𝗃𝗵𝗲. Yaoyorozu, or as we call her, Yamamo, she was having self-esteem issues that we helped her get over. Overall, our journey was pretty great. Although, we couldn't stay in one place for long because the soldiers looking for Todoroki could have found us. That night, we decided to make a campfire by the forest where no one could see us. We all set down our sleeping bags and huddled around the fire. So, how many people do we need to find left? Todoroki asked. I shrugged. Not sure. I looked down at the scroll in my bag. He's been inactive for some time now. I'm not sure we can trust in him to tell us. I sighed. Wanna tell stories? Might as well pass time. Sure. Kirishima smiled. I'll go first. Bakugo smirked. Oh. Well, isn't that weird? Aoyama snickered. Bakugo wants to go first. I saw him Shinso who was drinking tea. He raised a brow at Bakugo. This isn't gonna go well. Once upon a time there was me, an amazing king who saved a bunch of dragon shifters from death. There was this one dragon, who was totally not named Shinso, that was extremely annoying. So, one day I was so annoyed by him I switched his shampoo with permanent purple hair dye. When he first realized it was purple, he screamed just like a girl. No, even higher pitched. Legend has it that he still has purple hair to this day. I sweat dropped. What a great story, Bakugo. I'll go next. Shinso said, placing down his drink. One day there was this idiotic king who happened to be named Bakugo. He was so idiotic that one day he went out scouting and just happened to leave all the doors in his castle open. So, some wild bears ran in and began eating all of his underwear and clothing. The next day he came to a meeting with a bear but I heard everyone snicker but tried to be quiet so that they wouldn't face the wrath of Lord 𝗓𝗏𝗄𝗏. Wait, so it was you who let the bears in? Bakugo screamed. Be Bakugo, calm down. Shoji's sweat dropped. I am calm. You know what, I have another story. Hang on, shouldn't we let other people tell a story? Sato asked. Shut up. Sato's right, Bakugo. Kirishima sighed. Just let someone else go. Bakugo crossed his arms and grumbled. Fine. So who's going? Tsu asked. Okay, Iida called out. I'll go dash. I sighed and noticed Bakugo tense up. What's up? I asked him. Ochaco frowned. Bakugo, isn't that kinda rude dash? Shut up. He snapped. Hey, don't talk to her like that. I said. He glared at me. Something's coming. He muttered. Kirishima, don't you hear it? Kirishima raised a brow and listened in. Footsteps, he said. Lots of them. Quickly put the fire out. I said. We immediately dumped water over the fire. Where are the footsteps coming from? Our left. Bakugo hissed. Our right too. Kirishima added. Everywhere. Shinso finished. Suddenly, we were surrounded by a large group of soldiers. They wore silver armor with a large T written on their chest plates in red. They all held large iron swords and pointed them at our group. They were Endeavor's soldiers. I looked over at Todoroki, who looked tense, just as everyone else was. A soldier walked over to us. I guessed he was the captain, and he removed his helmet. He had slick, blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Well, I'll be, he smirked. It's Shinso, and Sir Bakugo. Oh, Kirishima too. I looked over at the three who had wide eyes. Minoma, Kirishima mumbled. It's been quite a while. Well, sorry to be a mood breaker, but we'll be taking Todoroki now. He grinned. What? But why are you doing this? Kirishima asked. We were friends. Friends? He scoffed. You killed our people, how is that friendly? That's not it. Why would you think that? Kirishima screamed. In fact, why does everyone think that? Minoma scoffed once more. Acting like you don't know anything, how cliché. Now, my only orders were to retrieve Todoroki and leave. If you get in the way, we'll have to arrest you, got it? I'm afraid we can't let you take him. Iida said, facing Minoma. What right do you have anyway? Iida, I muttered in worry. Iida, you don't have to stand up for me. Todoroki said. Well, we're friends, are we not? And friends stand up for each other. Iida announced. How cute. Minoma groaned. Todoroki. We're going. No. He isn't going anywhere. Ochaco shouted. If you do, we'll release dragons on you. Dragons? A soldier gulped. Dragons are real. Too real. I nodded. With large, sharp teeth. That can bite you in half. Another soldier whimpered. See, Captain, maybe we should leave. You idiots. He facepalmed. Dragons are nothing. But sir, just do your job. You know what'll happen if we come back empty-handed. He screamed. And even if they do have dragons, he glared at Bakugo. I'll deal with them. So what'll it be? He smirked. Will you cooperate or not? Everyone stepped up in front of him, clearly showing we weren't interested in cooperating. Guys, you don't have to stand up for me. I decided to run away on my own. You shouldn't get in trouble because of me. Todoroki said. Well, if that's your choice. Minoma sighed and looked at us with dark eyes. I'll have to deal with you myself. Kirishima. Bakugo yelled, running forward with Kirishima following. I was blinded by a familiar bright light when two dragons appeared in front of me. It wasn't Kirishima and Shinso, it was Minoma and Kirishima. He's a dragon too. Sato exclaimed. What's with this world? It's a crazy world. I exclaimed. Now run. Everyone turned around and began sprinting away in the opposite direction. Not so fast. A soldier appeared in front of us, holding Ochaco with a sword to her neck. Make one move, she goes. I glared at him. Don't touch her. Then do as we say. We all backed down and he smirked. Tricked you. Ochaco disappeared and I looked beside me to see her standing there. Wait, weren't you just ugh? Suddenly, everything turned black and I felt myself hit the ground. When I came to, I was tied up and in a carriage. What's going on? I screamed. Shut up, idiot. I looked beside me and saw Bakugo tied up too. I looked around and saw everyone else too, except for Kirishima and Shinso. Where's Kirishima and Shinso? I asked those who were conscious, which was me, Bakugo, Todoroki, Tokoyami and Yamamoto. Everyone else was knocked out cold. I saw Kirishima being taken to the front with that blonde guy. Shinso was taken to the back. Probably because they know that they're dragon shifters. Tokoyami explained. So, Bakugo, what's with you and that blonde guy? You seem to know each other. His name is Minoma. He's also a dragon shifter. Bakugo explained. I think we know that already. I mumbled. What was that? Bakugo glared. And nothing. Anyway, he was a friend, you could say. But all these years we thought he was dead, and it turns out he's been working for your father. He snapped at Todoroki. How was I supposed to know he was a dragon shifter? Todoroki defended. I mean, it's not like he's my father's personal guard or something, he's what? Todoroki sighed. Couple years ago, my father came home with a young boy around my age. He told me that he was going to be living with us for a while, and eventually he was recruited as my father's personal guard. I had no idea why, as far as I knew he was just a normal kid. But now I know why, he growled. That 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗟𝗘, using children as his puppets. You have a twisted dad. Bakugo spat. 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗁𝗏. Yamamoto said. No, it's fine, he wasn't always like that. One day, there was a BLD moon and he just changed. Like that. He clicked his fingers together. Hang on, BLD moon. Bakugo asked. When was it? I don't know, a couple years ago. Were the animals freaking out? Actually yes. The castle dogs suddenly went savage and began attacking everyone. We had to lock them away until they calmed down the day after. Bakugo looked shocked. That's the day my kingdom fell to the ground. I looked up. You mean, he nodded. Something happened that day, something that affected people all over our world. Wait, you said BLD moon? Yamamoto asked. Yes. There was a BLD moon the night before everyone started going against me. Before that, I was on good terms with everyone, then overnight, they all just became twisted. I hummed. There's a trend going on, but what could be causing these twists? Before we could answer, the door swung open and Shinso and Kirishima were shoved in. Guys! I exclaimed. You're okay? More or less, Kirishima muttered. Are you guys okay? I nodded. Some are still knocked out. Don't try anything, you. You know what'll happen. A soldier growled before slamming the door shut. So, where were you guys? I asked. In a cage. Shinso said as if it was nothing. A cage. Isn't that uncomfortable? I was stuck in a cage for years. The only difference was this one was more comfortable. He glared at Bakugo, who just scoffed and looked away. Guys, stop fighting, seriously. Kirishima sighed. We'll get nowhere like this. Now, my question is, why did they let us out? I can answer that. Minoma opened the door. We've arrived. I was forced to get out of the carriage and was met with a giant castle. Wow, it's huge. I exclaimed. Todoroki, you really lived here. He looked at me and sighed. I guess you really are a prince, Mineta said. Oh, Mineta, you're awake. I said. And does that mean you never believed us when we told you? Obviously not. It's so easy to lie about your identity. But now I know the truth. He smirked and grabbed Todoroki's leg. Are there any cute princesses around? Shoto. I turned around to see a young woman. She sprinted over to us and tackled Todoroki. Shoto, you had me so worried. Mineta was thrown off but was caught by Shoji. Iida walked over to me. Who's this? He asked. No idea. I looked at the young woman. She had white hair with red streaks in it and was wearing a plain white shirt and jeans. Do you have any idea how scared we were? She exclaimed in tears. I thought Todoroki didn't have any family members who cared about him, Iida whispered to me. Isn't that why he ran away? I shrugged. Not sure. Have you been eating? She screamed. Drinking. Sleeping. Oh my god, your hair is surprisingly clean. You've been showering. Fuyumi. Todoroki yelled. Can you stop? Oh. Sorry, anyway, are these your friends? She walked over to me. Nice to meet you. Hi. I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm Fuyumi Todoroki, Shoto's older sister. Nice to meet you. I trailed off when she saw the girls and started inspecting them. You're all so pretty. Shoto, you really hit the jackpot. Fuyumi, Todoroki sighed, getting up from the ground. Miss Fuyumi, we would appreciate if you take a step back. A soldier said. Fuyumi looked confused but did as she was told. What's going on? Minoma walked forward. These kids are being arrested. What? Ochaco screamed. We're the same age, 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗟𝗏. Bakugo yelled. Is this because I eavesdropped on the girls when they were having their talk about who's the hottest boy here? Because I didn't mean to. Mineta cried. I mumbled in disbelief. You girls talk about who's the hottest boy. All the other boys mumbled after before surrounding Mineta. So, who did they say? Yeah, I want to know too. Same here. All the soldiers, Monoma, Fuyumi, the girls and I sweat dropped. Bakugo looked like he was going to explode. Who cares about who's the hottest? We're being arrested for no reason, idiots. Bakugo screamed in frustration, punching Kirishima, who made it seem like he didn't feel a thing. You're being arrested for resisting arrest, attacking authorized personnel, and for murder. Monoma explained. Murder? We already told you, that had nothing to do with us. Ask Shinso. Monoma looked at Shinso, who just shrugged. I don't believe it myself. Well, that's that. Bakugo looked at Shinso with a, I'm going to murder you, and I mean it this time, look. Shinso just looked away in return. Well, with this over, I think it's time you meet the king. The king. Yes. We walked to the castle and a soldier swung the large door open. It seemed to be absolute darkness until flames appeared on the torches from nowhere and a large silhouette was seen on the throne. No one needed to be told who it was, his intimidating aura spoke for itself. Plus, King Endeavor. Deku! Ochaco yelled from across the town. Oh, hey Ochaco. Where's Iida? I asked, grabbing my bag of apples and walking up to her. I'm really not sure. He left earlier and asked me to meet him at this address. She handed me a piece of paper. It had a note written in neat cursive writing. Dear whoever may be reading this, please meet me at the house on the top of the hill at 3 a.m. tonight. Sincerely yours. I raised my brow. The house on the top of the hill isn't that the abandoned mansion? I think so, but Iida told me to meet there, so I guess we should. Ochaco shrugged. How do you know it was from Iida? I asked. Well, Iida came over to my house and when he left I found this in my mailbox. And you're sure it wasn't someone else? She looked at me with blank eyes. Whatever, I'll come with you. Yeah, sure. She skipped away to her house. Weird, I muttered, heading back home. That night I snuck out of the house and met Ochaco on her front yard. Hey! I greeted. Hello. She smiled. We turned around and started walking towards the hill where the mansion stood. We hiked up the surprisingly steep hill and saw an old, gigantic gate. A gate. I mumbled. A gate. Ochaco grinned. Hey Ochaco. Are you okay? You seem to be acting weird. Weird? What's weird? I'm not weird. She smiled and skipped into the house. I looked at my watch. 3 a.m. I realized I had lost track of Ochaco. Ochaco! I screamed, running into the house. But when I went in I couldn't find her anywhere. Ochaco, come out, this isn't funny, it was pitch black so I couldn't see anything around me. I kept stumbling and tripping over various objects, not knowing they were there. Ochaco, please, it's scary in here. I shivered as a cold breeze flew by, making my spine turn cold. Ochaco! I gritted my teeth as I walked into another room. I heard creaking behind me. Hello. I called, whipping my head around. Hey, anyone there? Suddenly, a white light flashed into my face. Bitch! I screamed, rubbing my eyes. When the pain subsided I saw the face of Iida. Iida! I screamed gratefully. Midoriya! He mumbled. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? You invited Ochaco. Invited Ochaco? No, I didn't. Hang on. He took something out of his pocket. Did she get this letter too? He showed me the exact same letter Ochaco had. Yes. Weird, where is she now? I trailed off. Hang on, can you say her name again? Ochaco. I gulped. Iida, that's not you, is it? What do you mean? Iida never calls Ochaco by her real name, he always calls her Uraraka. I saw his eyes go dark and once I blinked he was gone. What the? I screamed and cried. Midoriya-kun. I turned my head around to see Iida. Iida. I was about to hug him but I stepped back. Are you the real Iida? What do you mean, the real Iida? Who are your best friends? Well, you and Uraraka, of course. And what happened when we were 3? You fell off a cliff and broke your arm. And you fell off the cliff because you tripped on a lollipop. Thank God it's you. I cheered. Why? What's going on? Something weird. We need to find Ochaco and get out of here fast. Okay. I grabbed his arm and began dragging him around the mansion. Somehow, we ended up on the 2nd floor. Dsmin, where are we? I said, pushing a door open. I was met with big, beady eyes. Ah! I screamed. Ah! I heard something else scream. Ah! I screamed at the scream I heard screamed. Aha! Something screamed at my scream because I heard something scream. Aw dash, can you shut up? Another flashlight glowed in my eyes as I saw Mineta and 𝗧𝗏 in the room I had walked into with Iida. Midoriya. Mineta cried. So you were the one screaming? I nodded. And you were the other person? He nodded and we both sighed. Thank God dash. We all tensed up at the high-pitched scream. SSS should 𝗬𝗏𝗎𝐺𝐻 after it. I shivered. 𝗓𝗏𝗎𝗎𝗓𝗏, Mineta mumbled. We slowly walked through the halls of the mansion, the floorboards creaking as we stepped on them. We opened the door to the room we heard the screaming from. It was pitch black when suddenly the lights came on. Mineta and I screamed loudly. Oh, thank God, the lights are on. A feminine voice said. I looked ahead of us and saw 𝗵𝗲𝗎 by the light SW. 𝗵𝗲𝗎. Mineta and my jaw dropped. Thanks a lot, Todoroki. No problem. Todoroki jumped down from the ceiling. You okay, 𝐎𝐩𝐽𝐻𝐽? That spider did give you quite a scare. I'm fine. 𝐎𝐻𝐽𝐻𝐽 shivered, clinging onto Todoroki's arm. Todoroki. 𝐎𝐻𝐽𝐻𝐽. Mineta and I exclaimed. Oh, hello Mineta and Midoriya. Todoroki greeted. What are you doing here? I could say the same for you. I exclaimed. What were you doing? Well, the lights were off. 𝗵𝗲𝗎 explained. And it was getting dark, so Todoroki and 𝐎𝐻𝐽𝐻 went up into the roof to check what was wrong with the electrical cables when 𝐎𝐻𝐽𝐻 saw a spider and freaked out. But we managed to get the lights on in the end. Anyway, what's your story? Why is it just you two? Just us two. I looked behind us to see that Iida and 𝗧𝗏 were missing. Where's Iida and 𝗧𝗏? Iida and 𝗧𝗏. They were with you? 𝐎𝐻𝐽𝐻 asked. Yes. And now they're gone. Today is so weird. Weird how? Well, to begin, Ochaco was acting weirdly and then she disappeared. Iida appeared then disappeared then appeared and then disappeared again. 𝗧𝗏 appeared and disappeared and now you guys. What? Come to think of it, I've heard this before. Todoroki muttered. Huh. Every Halloween at 3 a.m. weird things happen at this mansion. First, a demon disguised as someone you know will lead you into this house, then it will taunt you by showing you your friends over and over again and then having them disappear. This goes on for the whole hour of 3 a.m. until 4 a.m. comes along. What happens then? I looked at my watch. 3:59 a.m. It begun switching to 4 a.m. Everything restarts. What? Deku. Ochaco yelled from across the town. Oh, hey Ochaco. I smiled. Where Iida? I don't know, he went over to this mansion this morning and handed this to me. I'm off to the mansion right now here. She handed me a piece of paper. Dear whoever may be reading this, please meet me at the house on the top of the hill 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. Sincerely yours. I smiled at the note and walked over to Mineta. Hey Mineta. I smiled. Hey Midoriya, where you headed? Oh, I'm off to the mansion. Here. I handed him the note and watched his confused face turn into a possessed smile. Hey 𝗧𝗏. I heard him say. Here. Plus I smiled as I saw 𝗧𝗏 walk to 𝗵𝗲𝗎, and 𝗵𝗲𝗎 walk to 𝐎𝐻𝐽𝐻 and 𝐎𝐻𝐽𝐻 walked to Todoroki. Together we walked over to the mansion. What a weird, weird day. There he was, King Endeavor on his throne of flames. He was even more intimidating than in the stories I had heard of him. Well, well. He said in his deep, gruff voice. Welcome home, Shoto. Sir. Minoma walked up and bowed. What do you want us to do with these extras? Send them to the dungeon. But keep Shoto, I want to have a word with him. I flinched at the word dungeon. Memories from the Dragonlands came flooding back. Keep moving. A soldier shoved me forward, almost causing me to trip over, but I was caught by Ochaco. I chuckled awkwardly, thanks. We continued walking. We walked down steel stairs and the sunlight began to fade away. We were shoved into a prison, 3 people in each cell, and were left alone. Damn it. We need to find a way out of here, I exclaimed, punching the iron cell, only to hurt my hand in the process. I hope Todoroki is all right, Yamamoto muttered. That Endeavor guy seemed scary. Haven't you heard the stories about him? I asked. No. Apparently, when All for One invaded our world all those years ago, Endeavor also tried to defeat him but failed. When he found out All Might had defeated AFO and became a hero and legend, he became furious and married the princess of the now Todoroki kingdom. All he cared about was gaining fame and glory, so he began training his children to become the rightful ruler and heir of his kingdom, hoping one day they would surpass the fame All Might had gained. Of course, that didn't really work out. Before anyone could say anything else, the door swung open and Monoma came in, dragging Todoroki and throwing him into our cell. Todoroki! Iida exclaimed. Thank goodness you're okay. Yeah, he muttered, getting back up. What happened? Hagakure asked. We were worried. How you want to know what happened? Monoma smirked. Your friend over here just made a deal with the king. Tomorrow at high noon, he and the king shall spar. If Todoroki wins, all of you are released from here free of charge. Everyone smiled to themselves. Thank God. And if he loses, well, I'll cut it short. Every single one of you is killed and beheaded. Isn't that great? We haven't had a decapitation in years. He laughed crazily. But I'll have to leave you to it. He winked and walked away. Everyone was left speechless. Be beheaded. Mineta cried. But I haven't gotten a girlfriend yet. And I haven't become a famous dancer. Ashido screamed. Everyone started crying and wailing, not wanting to die. Come on, guys. Don't you have any trust in Todoroki? I frowned. I'm sure he can win. Sorry to break it to you, Midoriya, but never in my life have I beaten that man in a spar. I hesitated. Well, you can always try. He frowned at me. You don't understand. What don't I understand? He completely ignored me and stared at Bakugo with cold eyes. Tell me, Bakugo. During the incident at the Dragonlands, you mentioned your friend named Kaminari. Tell me, this Kaminari, did he have bright, yellow hair? Bakugo twitched his eye. Yes. Todoroki chuckled and looked back at me. That bstrd has taken him hostage. Well, Kaminari, what do you think? Endeavor smirked at his brilliant plan. He had heard that Shoto had encountered with the Dragon Lord, meaning he would have heard or know about Kaminari. It was a big risk, but gambling was his style. He knew that somehow his son had had contact with All Might, and using his servant, Kaminari, as bait, he would get all the information about All Might from his son and use it to his advantage. Of course, Shoto hated losing, so what better way to get information out of him than a fight? So, he said, waiting for an answer. Kaminari grinned. I think it's a great plan, my lord. No way, I mumbled. Would he do that? I had to live with him for years. I know he would. Todoroki replied. That's horrible, Sue croaked. I sat idle on the floor, thinking of a plan to get us and Kaminari out of here. Midoriya. Iida whispered. What's with that face? I'm trying to think up of a plan to get everyone out safely. A plan. If Todoroki doesn't manage to defeat Endeavor, then we'll need a plan to escape. I see. I continued thinking when an idea came to my head. Todoroki. I said. Yes. What's your father's name? I have a feeling Endeavor isn't his real name. He chuckled softly. No, it's just a name he thought sounded cool and began referring to himself as. His real name is 𝗫𝗫𝗫 Todoroki. Hang on, isn't your name Todoroki? Mineta asked. Then why does your dad have the same name as you? Huh. Your name. It's both Todoroki. That's our surname, what? We're of Japanese origin. In Japan they refer to each other by their surnames, which is why I am referred to as Todoroki. Were you unaware of that? What? Everyone called you Todoroki, so I assumed that was your first name, which is why I never personally asked you. Oh, come to think of it, Ishido spoke up. I thought that too. I face-bombed. I actually can't believe you two thought his first name was Todoroki. Mineta screamed, I'm sorry that it was unclear, Midoriya. Some of us aren't as smart as you. Anyway, what's your first name then? Insert first name here. I sweat dropped at his sudden change of tone. Shoto. 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 Shoto, how many times are we going to repeat my name? I ignored their squabbling as another idea of escape came into my head. Mineta was sounding out the syllables. You two quiet. Todoroki, come here, I think I have a plan. He looked at me in confusion and I whispered the plan of action to him. I see. But will it work? He muttered. We'll have to see. Okay. At high noon the next day we were forced out of our cells and tied up in the castle courtyards. The sun burned brightly and while we were getting burnt, the guards were enjoying pina coladas under the shade. First one to fall unconscious, unable to battle or forfeits loses the match. Understood. A servant called out. There are no rules, but please refrain from bloodshed, it's too much of a burden to clean. Bloodshed. Now you may begin. 𝗵𝗃 stood on one side and Todoroki stood on the other. Both had no armor but had sharp, iron swords. Todoroki, you better win this, you bastard. Bakugo yelled, forcing some soldiers to hold him back. But I could see Todoroki was hesitant to charge. Not gonna move. 𝗵𝗃 taunted. Fine. He lifted his sword and charged at Todoroki, who just managed to dodge but got a piece of his clothing ripped in the process. Better, but you're still slow, Shoto. 𝗵𝗃 growled. Am I? Todoroki threw his sword towards 𝗵𝗃, who got a cut on the cheek. Not bad, but now you're weaponless. He ran at Todoroki. Todoroki predicted his actions and dodged, but 𝗵𝗃 anticipated so and cut off his dodge, cutting him in the arm. Blood dripped on the floor as I bit my lip. Remember the plan, remember the plan. 𝗵𝗃 didn't wait for a reaction and ran at Shoto again, stabbing him in the ribs. I squinted my eyes to distract me from the painful cries of my friend. What a horrible father, I thought. I opened my eyes to see an almost lifeless Todoroki on the ground. I guess the plan wasn't going to work after all. Okay, so here's the plan. I whispered. I know you won't be able to defeat your father, but try to keep dodging his attacks. That'll make him tired enough, and when he is, you can swoop in for the kill. Not literally, just figuratively. What a shame, Shoto. It seems you really were useless after all. 𝗵𝗃 spat, throwing his sword on the ground. I widened my eyes as those words triggered a memory in my brain. Deku. It really seems you were useless after all. The biggest bully of the town spat at me. You should just go die. I gripped my arm in pain and bit my lip to hold back tears. Why will you what? He imitated and smirked. Why can't I remember his face? In fact, why can't I remember this at all? Go on, Deku. He pointed far off in the distance. Just go away and never come back. I let go of my lip and allowed tears to come rolling down my face like a waterfall. Boo-hoo, is baby Deku crying? How weak. Hey, what do you think you're doing? I turned around me to see my mum angrily stomping over. That's my son. Mum. Oh, sorry, ma'am, your son just got in my way, that's all. The boy smiled innocently. Oh, sorry, ma'am, my butt. You think you can go around hurting other little boys? You can't. Not only is it mean, but it's against the law to physically injure someone without a reason to do so. Now, I'll have a talk with your mum if you don't mind. The boy started whimpering, then he began crying. I'm sorry. I really am. It's fine. My mum said. Just don't do it again. So you won't tell mummy? No, I won't. Thank you. The boy turned around and sprinted off. You okay, Izuku? Why were ya? I sniffled, hugging her tightly. It's all right now, it's all right. She said, combing her soft hand through my hair. Let's go home. We began walking home. How could I forget something so important? I bet 𝗵𝗲𝗏 never did that to Todoroki or any of his children. What happened to Mrs. Todoroki again? That's right. She left 𝗵𝗲𝗏 when Shoto was a young boy, which means I see. Shoto. I screamed, getting up. Get up. Deku, Ochaco whispered. What are you doing? You want to see your mother, don't you? I could see his body flinch. You told me. When we were camping out, you told me that your only wish was to see your mother again. What is that kid doing? I heard 𝗵𝗲𝗏 say to his soldiers. So, go see her. Midoriya, I don't think it's going to work. Ojiro mumbled. If you win this, he can't boss you around anymore. Can he? It's your life, Todoroki. I screamed. Your life. Not his. Then, at what seemed like lightning speed, Todoroki grabbed the sword 𝗵𝗲𝗏 dropped beside him and sprinted over. He kicked him in the part that shall not be named, causing him to bend over. He kicked him once more and made him fall to the ground, holding the sword to his neck. Not bad, Shoto. You told me, Enji, that you should never leave a weapon within your enemy's reach, did you not? Enji chuckled. So I did, he sighed. I forfeit. The winner is Shoto Todoroki. The servant announced. They. Now can the cleaners clean up that BLD already? It's beginning to dry up. The soldiers released us from our restraints and we ran over to Todoroki. You did it. I exclaimed. That was amazing. Thanks, he mumbled. Thank you, Midoriya. I smiled. Call me Izuku. Then, please call me Shoto. I grinned. Suddenly, someone from the shadows charged out, knocking me over and holding a sword to my neck. It wasn't the person I was aiming for, but as long as it's a person. The guy smirked. 𝗂𝐭𝐚𝐲 Kirishima exclaimed. I looked at the boy on top of me. He was exactly as they described, yellow hair, yellow eyes and all. Stay out of this, Kirishima. I want him and him only. He hissed and began choking me. Kirishima. I blurted out. The plan. You have a plan on getting 𝗂𝐴𝐻 on our side? Kirishima asked. This. Tell me what's a good memory you two have of each other. Well, remember that time when Bakugo went out and you, Shinso and I lured a bunch of bears into the castle? Remember that? If the rumor is that Bakugo killed your people, then he would hate Bakugo for sure. Remember how we got into so much trouble that we had to muck out the stables, but we had a great time anyway. And he and Shinso were close, but they shared more of a sibling relationship, which means he could defy him if he wanted to. The bears ate all his underwear, didn't they? 𝗂𝐴𝐻 chuckled, loosening his grip on me, allowing me to breath. Which is why you, Kirishima, must do it. You and 𝗂𝐴𝐻 formed a great bond in your childhood, and there's no way he would let go of that so easily. So that's why you, and only you, must call out to him. Please, my friend. Kirishima extended his hand. Come back to us. 𝗂𝐴𝐻 dropped his sword and got off of me, stumbling into Kirishima's arms. I didn't want to believe that you killed everyone. I knew you wouldn't do that. You okay, Deku? Ochaco exclaimed in worry. I'm okay, I think. Oh, thank goodness. I nodded and she helped me get up. 𝗂𝐴𝐻. I said. He looked over at me. Yes. We're on a mission. All for One is back and we need your help to defeat him. What do you say? He looked at Bakugo, Kirishima and Shinso, who nodded. I'll help. Awesome. I smiled widely. My smile soon faded as the ground began shaking and black vines began engulfing the castle. The sky turned dark and everyone except for our group fell to the ground in a deep slumber. We all stared at the giant demon before us. Our feelings of pride and happiness quickly slipped away, leaving a feeling of despair and agony. We knew the day would come, but we didn't know it would come so soon. The final showdown was about to begin. We all stared up at the terrifying creature above us. Its shadow was large enough to cover the entire castle, and he himself covered up the sun, turning everything into complete darkness. The people around us were in a deep slumber, except us. He's here, I gulped. All for one. But we're not ready. Mineta exclaimed. This is too sudden. We all began panicking when Monoma got up. Monoma, you're awake. I yelled. Everyone else got up too. Oh, sorry if we worried you, a butler said, We were just exhausted. We haven't had a bit of sleep in ages. Yeah, petition for sleep time. A maid yelled. Say I. Everyone said I. I sweat dropped. Then what about all for one? You mean that scary thing? Another butler yelled. I looked up at the demon who seemed to be crying. Hey, you hurt AFO's feelings. Ochaco scolded the butler. Say sorry. Oh, sorry. It's fine. All for one sniffled. I'm used to it. I just wanted to say Merry Christmas, but everyone started freaking out and I got sad. Suddenly, my scroll opened and up. I is I all might. And I am suddenly active again. All might. He looked up at AFO. It's Suki, you're here. Hi Toshinori. Good. Now the party can begin. What party? I asked. Well, obviously the reason why I haven't been active is because I was preparing a Christmas party. Excuse me. See, I've been planning this Christmas party since chapter 1, but I didn't have anywhere to hold it or anyone to invite. Then I met you and I was like, what if I make this kid make friends for me, then I can invite people to my party. He forced the scroll to look at Endeavor. Now NG, old buddy, would you let us use your castle as a place to hold the party? Sure. Great. Make sure to invite Ray. Everyone's jaw dropped. Todoroki looked like he was about to scream. Now, everyone inside. Oh, and it's Suki, please fix these windows, we don't want anyone cutting their feet on the broken glass. All for one, or Itsuki nodded. Now let's party. We all went inside into the ballroom. The doorbell rang and inside came a bunch of older guys. Thank you guys so much for coming. No problem. Aizawa said, although he wasn't paying attention. I'm just here for the food. Vlad said. I sweat dropped. At least he's honest. Hey Deku. Look at this food. Ochaco yelled, waving me over. I walked down to her and yelled happily from the sight of all the food. Fried rice. Chicken. I gasped. Pork cutlet bowl. My mouth was drooling. Where did you even get all this food? I asked All Might. I have sources. He winked. Now where the hell is the Christmas tree? Over here. Kirishima came in pushing a Christmas tree, a giant Christmas tree. Thanks a lot, young Kirishima. We needed your strength for this. That's dragon strength for you. He grinned, flexing his muscles. So manly, Ochaco muttered. Well then dig in guys. All Might yelled and everyone began eating. I watched everyone eat and felt bad. They all did something to contribute to this party and yet I did nothing. All Might, I muttered. Don't think like that. He yelled. How did you dash? Young Midoriya, if it weren't for you none of these people would be here right now. It's all because of you that everyone is here, eating happily together as friends. Mineta snickered. I mean, what if something bad happened right now? Like we all died or something. Wouldn't that 𝐒𝐭𝐴? Everyone went silent but soon broke into laughter. You're so funny, Mineta. I know. Everyone a toast. Endeavor yelled but no one listened to him. All of you idiots listen to me or else I'll burn your bodies to the ground. No. As he said the toast I couldn't help but feel sad. You okay, Deku? Ochaco whispered to me, trying to make Endeavor not notice so she wouldn't be burnt to the ground. I guess, but this Christmas just feels empty without my mum. I feel you, I wish my parents were here too. Suddenly, the doors swung open. Midoriya! Someone cried. I recognized that cry anywhere. I turned around and smiled widely. Mum! I screamed, running towards her and embracing her in a large hug. Oh, I've missed you. You have been changing your underwear, right? Why yes, Mum. But not now. How did you know we were here? Well, All Might invited me. But my dragon flight took a little longer than I expected. Dragon flight. I looked behind me and saw an irritated Shinso carrying all my mum's luggage. The way he looked at me was the same way Bakugo did. It was an I will kill you look. I gulped and grabbed my mum's hand. Come on, let's go eat. We headed for the table and began eating. All right, guys. All Might yelled. Let's begin the countdown until Christmas Day. Ready? Everyone nodded. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Plus, Merry Christmas. The giant demon roared loudly, its breath causing the ground around to fall apart and come at us. I got sliced in the arm by a piece of flying glass. That isn't who I think it is it? Mineta gulped. I took a breath. It's all for 1 inch so soon. But we're not sure if we've gathered everyone yet. Guys! Kirishima yelled. I can't get Shinso to wake up. I gritted my teeth and looked around. Everyone except us was asleep, including Shinso. I'm guessing that if there's any one of us left, they'll also be awake. I gulped. But how are we supposed to beat that thing all by ourselves? I shook my head. We can't beat him. Shut up, Midoriya. Bakugo growled. Everyone get inside the castle, we'll deal with everyone's wounds first, then we'll think of a battle plan. Kirishima, carry that Shinso brat in with you. Everyone nodded and we escaped into the castle. Ochaco began using potions she had left over to heal everyone's wounds. I looked at the scroll which was in my hand. Please. I mumbled to it. Just tell us what to do. Not responding. Bakugo spat and sat next to me. I sighed. Well, we can't have faith in him right now, you know I hate you, right? He said. I sighed again. Well, as much as I hate you, everyone here is putting all their trust in you. I don't get why, but if you mess up, I'll kill you. I smiled. Sure. Todoroki 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗟𝗘. Got any weapons in here? Todoroki thought. There should be a weaponry shed to the north. I could go get some weapons if you'd like. Go. And take that square glasses guy with you. Just in case. Got it. The name's Iida. Iida irritatedly replied before the two walked off. You seem to know what you're doing. I muttered. Unlike me, the brat. I was a king and leader of an entire military. I think I know how to freaking do my job. He yelled. Oi, Mineta. Make yourself useful and keep a lookout. If any Nomu or the freak himself shows up, tell us. Fine. Mineta got up and kept an eye by the window. I bit my lip. Everyone was working hard to think of a plan or some way to help, and I was doing nothing. Soon after, Todoroki and Iida returned with some swords, shields, and were also dragging cannons. This is everything we could carry, Iida said. I stood up and looked at the weapons they had. That's it. Bakugo frowned. My army had many times more weapons than that. I'm sorry that my kingdom actually has allies and has no need for weapons. Todoroki shot back. Mineta shouted from the distance. Need some ice for that burn. Bakugo glared at the tiny grape who sunk into the corner. I'll be here if anyone needs me, he mumbled. So, we have these weapons, the castle, and all 20 of us. Anyone got a plan? I looked at the weapons and began to think. I mean, if do this then that, and then we do this after, but no, he could still win, but if we do this then charge, and I began muttering a plan. Ua Deku? Ochaco asked. I flinched at her touching me. Huh. Do you have a plan? I thought. I think so. Kirishima brought everyone who was asleep inside the castle and lauded them on the floor, which would hopefully keep them from getting injured. Bakugo ordered everyone around, making sure they were in the right positions, and joined me in the front lines. This better work. He growled. Hopefully, Kirishima joined us. Do you two know the plan? I asked the two beside me, who answered with hesitant nods. Good. Now go. Kirishima transformed into a dragon and Bakugo jumped onto his back. At this point, All for One was only a kilometer or two away and the Nomu were even closer. Kirishima and Bakugo began sweeping through the Nomu, taking down those at the front, trying to discourage the others from continuing. Unfortunately, the mindless creatures didn't fear the two wrecking ball and continued on their way. I raised two fingers so that everyone knew which plan to go with. Soon, cannons were being shot, some hitting Nomu, some not. But most importantly, AFO was now within cannon range, meaning that we could now attack him with the cannons. Kirishima and Bakugo led the attack by flying above AFO's head and scorching it with bright red flames, stopping AFO from continuing. The Nomu, realizing their leader was in trouble, started running back to help him. More cannon shots were heard and dark ball were seen flying through the sky, exploding once they had impact with anything. So far, the plan seemed to be working. FO was stopped, all that was left was to finish him off. Once he was gone, so would the Nomu. I took a deep breath and looked at the scroll in the bag on the ground beside me. If only you were here, I thought. This would have been so much easier. My attention was brought back to the battle when I heard explosions. Not ahead of me, behind me. I whipped my head around to see that the cannonball were being shot back at the castle. The highest towers were destroyed and the ball were getting closer to where everyone was. Plus I gasped. But it was going so well. What happened? I turned around to see that AFO had started picking up the ball and throwing them back at us. Kirishima and Bakugo were nowhere to be seen and the Nomu were closer than ever. I began panicking, trying to think up of a plan. I became so distracted that I wasn't paying attention to what was happening around me. And the last thing I heard was, Midoriya. Look out. Midoriya. Look out. I heard a voice scream from above me. I looked up and widened my eyes. But I couldn't react in time before a cannonball flew towards me and crashed a couple meters away. The blast was strong enough to force me to fly back and hit my head on the ground harshly, causing me to lose consciousness. Midoriya. A voice screamed. But everything was muffled up. Everything was black. I felt something lift me up, but when I opened my eyes, there was no one around. In fact, there was nothing around. Just a dark abyss. Hello. I called out, looking for my friends. Is anyone there? I ran around trying to look for someone, but I just kept running in an endless loop. Deku. I heard a feminine scream and whipped my head around to see a surprised-looking Ochaco. She seemed to be reaching out for something but stopped when she realized where she was. Ochaco. I ran over to her, but once again, I was getting nowhere. Ochaco. I screamed again, but she couldn't hear me. I continued screaming for her and she continued to be unable to hear me. I eventually heard chattering from behind me and looked over to see Kirishima and Bakugo arguing. Where the hell are we? Bakugo angrily yelled. We were just outside 3 seconds ago. This is so 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. I'm not sure. Is this AFO's doing? Kirishima asked, looking around. I don't seem to see anyone. Are they okay? Who cares if they're okay? They can stand up for themselves. For now, we need to make it out of here. I watched them. So am I the only one able to the others? So why? Because I'm here. A deep voice said behind me, startling me. I jumped and came face to face with none other than All Might. All Might. WhatIf. I exclaimed, becoming a stuttering mess. Oh my god, I'm a big fan, but you already know that. What? Where are we? Where's Dash? Calm down, young Midoriya. You're in the scroll. The scroll. Like the scroll. Like the one you're stuck in. This. All for One was winning the battle, so I summoned you all here. I gasped, trying to take this all in. So in the real world, All for One is still fighting? Yes. And how long can we be in here for? I'm not sure. But might I say, I really thought you could win this battle, but I seem to have underestimated just how strong AFO has become over this past years. I gulped. I'm sorry, I really thought the plan would work. It seemed to be working. I just messed up. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Don't say that, young Midoriya. You came up with a great plan, and I'm proud of you. But that doesn't matter. AFO is still out there, and if we don't do something soon, my mum could. I wiped the tears which had decided to form in my eyes. Is there someone we can do to win? Or is it all hopeless? I asked, sniffling. I wished it didn't come to this, but I have a plan, the last resort. Huh. Suddenly, a white mist grew around us, and one by one, all of my friends started appearing around us. What? Jiro muttered. Where are we? Ochaco gasped. Deku. All Might. She exclaimed. Well, I'll be darned. Tokoyami grinned. You weren't lying. Midoriya-kun. Where are we? Iida asked. We're inside the scroll. Todoroki said. Is that right, Midoriya? I raised a brow. How did you know? Well, it's the only plausible explanation. After all, how else could All Might be here? Last we knew he was stuck in that scroll. Very good, young 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏. All Might grinned before clearing his throat. I'm sure you're all wondering why I have brought you here, he said. We all nodded. Well, the answer is simple. I want to help you. He smiled widely. And how exactly will you help us? Mineta asked. He grinned. Let me tell you a story. Long ago, long before you were all born, there lived a society where everyone had supernatural powers. After a long time, people started to use these powers less and less, and soon, they began to fade. When came my time, I discovered about such powers and decided to see if I could uncover their truth myself. Of course, my younger brother, 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏, did not like that. But he allowed me to leave anyway. Soon, I had uncovered the truth myself and I came home, only to find that my brother had traveled himself and uncovered the dark magic rather than the good I had found. It had corrupted him. And so, the two of us had a fierce battle. At the moment before he lost, he casted a spell, turning the moon a BLD red, corrupting every good soul in the world. With no choice left, I banished him to the hell world. The spell used to banish people to hell is a cruel one. You have to use the love in everyone's heart. But I didn't care, I used it anyway, causing the good left in the world to turn corrupt. I could never forgive myself after that, so I trapped myself inside that scroll, hoping that when the day came that my spell broke and AFO came free, he would get rid of the cruel left in the world. Soon though, I met you three, young Midoriya, Uraraka and Iida. And for once, I saw the wrong I had done to the world. So, I set you three on a journey to gather those who could love most in the world, and to trap AFO in the hell world for good. I see now that I had tricked you and I was wrong. So I wish to make it up to you. He looked down and for once, his smile faded. I wish you all could forgive me. Everyone seemed to stare at him with sympathy and sadness. We were all speechless, well, all but one of us. Bakugo scoffed. Is that what you really think? All Might perked his head up, his smile returning. What? Bakugo walked up to him and frowned angrily. Is that what you really think? Do you think you placed this burden on us and that we hate it? Well, I'll admit, 𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏 language. Kirishima yelled. Bakugo growled. The freaking sucks, bitch. But think about it. We finally have friends, even to do lonely over here. If looks could kill, Bakugo would have been stabbed in the heart 1,000,000 times and killed all over again with the look Todoroki gave him. So don't even dare say that. You made a mistake, but that's what makes you human. Now, you said you were gonna help us, right? So just freaking do it already. I hate being sappy. I grinned as Bakugo returned to his position beside Kirishima. So that's how you really felt. All Might wiped away a single tear that rolled down his cheek. That was appealing, young Bakugo. He exclaimed happily. I got you. He all motioned for us to come to him, so we did. He held out his hand and a white glowing ball appeared. I'm going to give you the magical ability I found when I went on my journey. These are called quirks. Touching this glowing ball will give you a quirk and send you back to the real world. Got it? We all glanced at each other and nodded, touching the ball one at a time. I watched everyone disappear in front of me, and soon, it was only me left. I looked at All Might and smiled at him. I won't let you down. I grinned. I know you won't. I touched the ball and saw glowing particles appear around me. I looked back at All Might and smiled widely. We'll stop him, I promise. When I opened my eyes again, we were back in our world, all together. I grinned and turned around to greet my friends, only for my mouth to drop instead, and not in a good way. Ojiro, you have a giant tail on your butt. Ashido yelled. Speak for yourself. You're literally melting the ground. Ojiro yelled back. Bakugo, stop exploding everything. Kirishima whimpered. His skin seemed to harden as Bakugo tried exploding him. Guys, shut up. You're hurting my ears also, Koda. What's with those bugs around you? Jiro asked. Koda turned white and began freaking out as bugs started gathering around him. I gasped. Ochaco, why are you floating? What do you mean? She asked, whilst upside down in the air. I'm more worried about why half of our friends are frozen. Everyone suddenly turned their heads around to see that everyone was turned into popsicles. We all glared at Todoroki, the clear culprit. He lifted his hand off 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐻𝑖's shoulder. It wasn't me, we all face-bombed but soon got our game faces on, those of us who weren't frozen, that is. We looked up at AFO, he stood no chance now. Everyone got their newly acquired quirks ready and began charging at him. I watched everyone ready, but in my mind I was still worrying. But what's my quirk? As everyone began charging at all for one with full force, his nomus began charging at us with full force too. Soon, it was a real battlefield. BLD was spilt everywhere, and many lifeless nomu lay on the ground. And yet I stayed still at the back. I gulped, this seemed too easy. But he can't have two tricks up his sleeve, can he? I seemed to think too soon as all for one broke into mad laughter. It wasn't the kind of laugh you'd want to join in with. It was menacing, almost as if he was making fun of us. Although he didn't speak, the look in his eye could only say one thing. You think you can beat me? What's the prick laughing about? Bakugo spat, making sparks in his hands. I looked up, I'm not sure. You want to know what I'm laughing about? Although he didn't move his mouth, his voice seemed to be loud and clear. Almost as if it was inside our heads. Tell me, do you want to know what it's like to have everyone go against you? Like they did to me? Well, every lifeless nomu, every bleeding creature and everyone who had fallen into a sleep inside the castle seemed to stand up all at once with quirks of their own. What the hell dash? Bakugo couldn't finish his swear before he was attacked by a blurred figure. Bakugo! Kirishima went to run after him before another figure stopped him. It was Minoma. I soon realized that the figure that had stopped Bakugo was none other than Shinso himself. What the Shinso, the hell you doing? Bakugo screamed, throwing explosions at Shinso's face. It didn't take me long to realize, he's been brainwashed. I screamed just as a fireball was thrown at me. I turned around only to meet eye to eye with Endeavor. I widened my eyes as another fireball was thrown at me. I was just able to dodge it. The fight seemed to have been moved from fighting AFO to fighting people who were mere civilians seconds before. I didn't have time to think before I realized another dozen balls of fire were being thrown at me. I knew I didn't have much time to run, so I crossed my arms, hoping I could at least weaken the blow before it reached my face. As the fire flew towards me, a large wall of ice formed in front of me, leaving a chilling sensation down my neck. You alright, Midoriya? I looked over and saw Todoroki. I exhaled deeply and nodded. Good. Now, figure out a way to defeat AFO. I'll deal with him. I looked over and Endeavor, who looked enraged but ran while I had the chance. I ran over as close as I could to AFO and stared up at him, gulping. Why are you doing this? I yelled. He seemed to look down at me. Why? He said. Isn't it clear? I shook my head. I'm tired of being the mistake. I'm tired of being neglected. When Tashinori left, my mother blamed me for making him leave. She cried and took her anger out on me. Do you know how much that hurt? No, of course you don't. In your life, you've been pampered and cared for by your mother. You even met All Might himself, you befriended a prince, a dragon lord, and your mother cried when you left, even though you'd clearly return. Do you know what my mother did once I left? She didn't even shed a tear. Nothing. So don't ask me, why am I doing this? Like the goody protagonist you are. He growled at me. I want you to feel what I felt and what I still feel to this day. And what better way to do that than kill your mother, right in front of your very eyes? My jaw dropped to the ground and my eyes widened as my mother appeared in front of me. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. Izuku! She screamed, but AFO held her in his grasp. I yelled, trying to reach out for her. I lowered my head and growled. He grinned at me. The anger built inside of me was let out, and suddenly, something bright began shining. For a split second, there was a moment where all the evil in the world was gone. Everyone saw that and took a chance. Look here, you purple-haired freak. Bakugo spat at Shinso, who was charging at him. Why don't we stop fighting? He received no response as he was forced to block a punch. Why would we stop? Shinso growled. For years, you left me trapped in that prison, didn't bother to bring me food or anything. You probably even forgot I existed. But now you want to stop. You want to act like none of that ever happened. Act all buddy-buddy.
What?
I don't think so. Bakugo glared at him as the truth slipped into his empty mind.
Yeah,
that's right. I want to act like nothing ever happened. So what's so wrong? Just shut the hell up and listen to me for once. I made a mistake and now I want to fix that mistake. But don't take that the wrong way. I'd hate to act all buddy-buddy with you. Kirishima grinned at Bakugo's response and saw that he was getting through to Shinso. So, he tried to see if he could try the same with Monoma.
Monoma?
He grinned. Remember the times we used to hang out together back in the village? You, me, Bakugo, Shinso and Kaminari. He could see Monoma twitch his head and continue his attack anyway, but he continued grinning. Remember that time when we put the permanent purple hair dye in Shinso's shampoo? Remember when we'd sneak into the castle and pull pranks on Bakugo? Do you remember? Monoma looked at him and gave him the biggest CRP-eating grin ever. Course I do, idiot. And as Todoroki was dodging attacks thrown at him from his father, he too tried to get through to him, saying things about his mother, his sister and his brother. Didn't you love them? He'd screamed. But none of it was working. And so, he ran towards Endeavor and did the last thing anyone expected the cold, Prince Todoroki to do. He hugged his father. Didn't you love me? He whispered. Endeavor's flames died down, and soon there were no flames at all. Of course I did. As I looked down beside me, a large sword had appeared. The blade was shiny and new, a real silver. The handle was finely crafted from quality wood and there was a gold hue to it. One for all. I heard All Might's voice in my head. The ability to enhance any quirk and make it multiple times stronger than what it really is. As the explanation ran through my head, I already knew what to do. I gripped the sword in my hand and looked at the hand in which AFO was holding my mother in. I charged at him. Green-blue sparks ignited around me as I leaped, reaching for the hand. I raised my sword and made a clean cut, chopping AFO's entire hand off. I caught my mum midair and let her on the ground gently. Everyone! I screamed and they all turned to look at me. All of them were on my side now, and that meant that we could finally end this. I raised my sword and it began glowing brightly. Lend me your strength. As the sword continued to grow brighter, everyone stood behind me, pride filled their eyes. I turned around and Kirishima grinned at me. Bakugo was scowling but that was his way of saying he'd be there no matter what. I looked at Iida, and then at Ochaco, the two I began this journey with. Even though we went through so much trouble, they still stuck by me. And although we were all cautious about beginning this journey, we all knew it was worth it. They looked at me with proud smiles and a thumbs up. That was when I knew I was ready. I lifted my sword in the air and I could swear I could make out the figure of All Might in the glowing mist, grinning proudly at me. I smiled back. I ran once again at All for One, my sword growing twice its size. I jumped up in the air and got ready to strike. At the beginning of this journey, I was naive, thinking that I could solve everything by myself. Now, I know that isn't the case. If it weren't for my friends, for my enemies, for everyone, then I wouldn't be able to do this right now. At the beginning, I wanted to run away. I wanted to go back home and stay with my mum all day. Right then, I wanted to run, to never come back. But I wanted to do one thing most of all. I wanted to end this. I wanted this to stop. So, I lifted my sword and got ready to slash All for One. He looked at me wide-eyed and lifted his arms to try to block the blow, but he was too slow. I threw the sword at him, stabbing him straight in the heart. As he looked at me in agony, I couldn't help but feel bad for this demon. He had been neglected his entire life. It wasn't his fault that he became like this. But one thing surprised me, and that was the words he mouthed to me as he slowly began becoming a pile of dust. Thank you. This demon, this heartless demon, had thanked me. He had thanked me for killing him, and that was when it occurred to me. Itsuki didn't go after the quirks to look for power, he went after them as a means of suicide. He wanted to use the quirks to kill himself, so he turned himself into a demon in hopes that his own brother would kill him. But in the end, All Might ended up just banishing him to the hell world. So I smiled to myself. Not because I had killed someone, but because I set him free. I set him free from the world he was trapped in. Trapped, My smile faded as a sinking feeling filled my heart. I turned around and saw All Might himself on the earth, but he too was chipping away. All Might, I exclaimed, running up to him. Maybe I can save you, I said, taking the sword. Maybe it's not too late, maybe I dash. He stopped me and smiled. Don't worry, young Midoriya, it's all right. I felt tears filling my eyes, and soon they were overflowing. But, I didn't tell you this because I knew you would have had tried to find another way. But the moment I banished all for 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗔𝗍𝗍, I tied his life force with mine. Meaning that when he passed, so would I. I did it in hopes of getting rid of my sins, but now I realize I was wrong. He looked at me with his large smile. Thank you, young Midoriya. You've taught me more than I have ever taught myself. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you. As nothing but dust remained, the only thing that people could hear were my screams of sadness. Bakugo, Shinso, Monoma, Kirishima and Kaminari had made amends, my mother was safe, Todoroki and Endeavor were on good terms, but no one was smiling. No one was celebrating that the world was saved. There was no reason to smile. Bakugo seemed to see this as he took Kaminari away and came back with a very dumb version of him. We couldn't help it, it made us laugh. Jiro had laughed so hard that snot started coming out of her nose. I laughed as well. It was a funny sight, but I was mostly laughing because I knew that All Might would have wanted us to be happy. Plus, hey guys, I said to the group, grinning widely. We saved the world. Hey guys, I said to the group, grinning widely. We saved the world. I finished reading the sentence and placed the book on the front desk, looking at my fellow classmates. Not bad, Midoriya. Aizawa-sensei said once I finished reading out the creative piece I wrote for an assignment we had. The theme was fantasy, and I decided to write a story about an elf boy and his best friends saving the world from an evil demon. I smiled. Thank you, I said before returning to my seat, holding the book in my hand. Deku, Uraraka exclaimed. That was such a good story. Where did you get the idea from? She asked. I looked over at her. I'm not sure, it just sort of came to me, I said, trying my best to explain. Well, it was very good, Midoriya, Iida said. I especially enjoyed being a strong knight, because I am a strong knight, he said, over-exaggerating his arm movements and pointing to the sky. I smiled at everyone's positive responses until I heard growling behind me. I sighed. What is it, Kaken? He glared at me. Why the hell am I friends with that freak? He said, pointing to Kaminari. I don't know. I just thought you'd make good friends. 𝗵𝘃𝗲, yeah right. At least you had the decency to make me a king. King Bakugo, that has a nice tone to it. He grinned to himself and his own fantasies. I, for one, didn't enjoy being a prince. Todoroki said from his desk. I wouldn't be experienced enough for that. Why not? I can see you fitting that role nicely. Ashido exclaimed. I don't think so. I sweat dropped. Sorry about that. It's no problem, Midoriya. He apologized. It's still a good story. Well, you guys can complain all you want. Uraraka exclaimed. I really enjoyed being a witch. That was an amazing story, Deku. I smiled widely at her. Thank you. Oi, one question. I turned around again to look at Bakugo. Why the hell is the entire story in your perspective? Shiro gasped. Look at Bakugo using big words. Shut up, tape face. He hissed to Shiro. Well, it's because he's the main character, isn't it? Todoroki asked. Everyone stared at him and groaned loudly. Look who broke the wall again. Mineta screamed. And you all complain that I'm the annoying one. Well, the people like Todoroki. They don't like you. Tokoyami said. I don't care. It's because the author as Mineta disappeared from our view, as though something were dragging him, we all face-bombed. Soon, he was gone and there was nothing we could do about it. Anyway, why were Shinso and Monoma in the story? They aren't even in our class. Yamamoe asked, scratching her chin. I sweat dropped. The day before Midoriya. A voice called from behind me. I turned around and saw Monoma. Yeah. I hear you're writing a story for your class assignment, he said. I nodded.
Yeah.
I suddenly couldn't move my body. That was when I realized 𝗵𝗏 never moved his mouth when he said his last sentence. Oh come on Shinso. He groaned. I wanted to brainwash him. Whatever. I laughed awkwardly, ignoring the loud laughing coming from the hallway outside our class. Let's not talk about that. Okay then, well, can you believe it's already over? Uraraka asked. Yeah, it feels like forever, I said, reminiscing on the past. Knowing her, the author is probably crying her eyes out right now. She said. Obviously. During an MG she was crying her eyes out. Ciro laughed. It was hilarious. Speak for yourself. Todoroki muttered. MG was a nightmare, huh? You know, I think she's planning to make another story with you in it. The look of dread on Todoroki's face was obvious. He hated being in these stories, but secretly he also enjoyed it. I looked at everyone's happy faces as they laughed together about the past. It may not be a perfect ending, but it sure is a great one. And that's all we need. 𝐒𝐭𝐴 you were a dragon. I exclaimed wide-eyed. That's so cool. I whipped out my notebook. Please tell me, what is it like? I started scribbling some notes. Midoriya, I don't think this is the time, Iida said, grabbing my shoulder. I see you have royalty with you, huh? The spiky-haired blonde said. Oh, a Todoroki even. Huh. This is great. With him, along with all of you, he smirked and didn't continue talking. I gulped. Kirishima. Put them into the dungeon. The real one this time. The dungeon door slammed shut once we were shoved in. This time, the dungeon was underground and was basically pitch black. The corners were dark, but the front wasn't due to a torch on the wall in front of the door. They had a plan the whole time. I smacked the wall. Calm down, Midoriya. I'm sure we'll find a way out. I doubt you will. A voice called from the shadows. A tall, purple-haired boy walked out. He had dark bags under his eyes and his hair seemed to have a life of its own. I've been here for years, I would know. Iida was cautious this time, afraid of another Kirishima incident. Who are you? Me. Shinso Hitoshi. Are you working with that dragon lord too? I asked. No. He imprisoned me when I did something very bad. Shinso shrugged. How can we trust you? Iida muttered. You could just be pretending like Kirishima. Shinso raised a brow before holding his hand out and showed an orange wristband. On it wrote, life sentence. Life sentence, just what did you do? I might have murdered one of his soldiers. At least that's what he says. You what? I yelled. He got in my way. He said as if it was a normal thing to murder someone. Plus, he had a really stupid name. Kaminari. Who the hell names their child that? Despite his attempts, I could tell he was lying. I sighed and took my notebook out. So let me get this straight, these people, well, dragons, well, they can shift. He rolled his eyes. Isn't it obvious? I wrote down some stuff. We need to get out of here. Iida spoke. Clearly. I mean it. Todoroki and Ochaco are out there. If these people can look like humans, then we're in big trouble. Not to mention I'm hungry. Everyone fell to the ground. What? Oh, I told you guys. There's no way out. I examined the perimeter of the room. Never say never. It seemed to be normal when I saw an odd brick at the back wall. I walked up to it and tapped it. Nothing. I pulled it. Nothing. Push it. The ground began to shake and the bricks fell one by one until there was no longer a wall and there was a tunnel. How could I have missed that? Shinso breathed. You gave up too soon. I said to him, although I had no idea how I saw that either, before walking into the tunnel, followed by Iida. I turned around. You coming? He looked hesitant. I've been here for years, I don't know if I dash. I grabbed his wrist and began pulling him along with me. You've been here for years, you deserve to get out. He sighed and allowed me to pull him along the corridor. Do you know where we're going? Iida asked. I stopped for a second. Nope. He facepalmed. Okay then, let me get this straight. Shinso said. I'm following two guys I've never met before out of a prison where I've been at 4 years and never found an exit, but somehow you guys found an exit that I missed. Even though I'm convinced that wasn't there anyway, and none of you have any idea of where we're going. I clicked my tongue. Basically. He stared at me. I'm going back. Wait, no. Oh, is anyone out there? Please help me. A muffled voice called out. Who said that? I asked. Not me. 𝗫𝗪𝗄 shrugged. Iida shook his head. In the wall. Which wall? This wall. I looked to the left wall. Nothing. To the right. I screamed as I saw a face on the wall. What the? I tapped it. At first nothing happened, but a couple seconds later a scroll fell onto the floor. I recognized it and picked it up. All Might! I exclaimed. Young Midoriya. Thank the heavens. He smiled widely. What happened? Why are you in the wall? It's a long story. You see, we were attacked by that giant dragon and I fell out of your bag. I was kicked around and tried to teleport myself to where you were. I used a spell to find out where you were and found a wall and decided to break the wall down. So that was why the wall fell. I pieced the puzzle together. Continuing, young Uraraka was taken by the creepy spiky blonde. Young Todoroki went after her but they haven't returned. Worry filled me. Change of plans, guys. We're looking for Todoroki and Ochaco before we leave. Okay with that, 𝗫𝗪𝗄. I looked over to see fear planted on his face. The scroll was talking. Oh, yeah, this is All Might. Long story for later, we need to go. Oi, 𝗫𝗪𝗄. Hurry. A yellow-haired boy called out to a moody purple-haired boy. Coming. The boy mumbled boredly. Don't need to scream so much, Kaminari. Oh, whatever. Just hurry. Or else we'll miss the annual fireworks. The two walked up a hill just in time for the first firework to pop. It was colorful, just like a rainbow. Can you believe it's been 3 years since Sir Bakugo saved us from AFO? Kaminari asked 𝗫𝗪𝗄. It feels like time has hardly passed. Or maybe it's just because dragons age very slowly. Kaminari eyed him. Stop rubbing the fact that you're a dragon shifter and I'm not in my face. It's not fair. He pouted. 𝗫𝗪𝗄 chuckled. Fine. Well, do you want to go closer to the fireworks? He asked. Kaminari looked at him and raised a brow. How would we do that? 𝗫𝗪𝗄 smirked, and after a bright, purple light, there stood a large purple dragon. The dragon motioned for Kaminari to get on, and so he did. They flew into the dark, blue sky and watched the fireworks fly and explode into millions and millions of colors. It was almost as if they landed in Oz. Kaminari smiled at the sight like a goofy 2-year-old. Thanks for taking me up here, bro. 𝗫𝗪𝗄 smiled to himself. No problem, bro. They returned to their house that night to find that their adopted mother, who was also pure human, was dead. Her lifeless body lay on the floor, leaning against the wall. Her arm had been bitten off. Mum. Kaminari rushed over to her side and checked for a pulse. He fell silent. She's gone. 𝗫𝗪𝗄 looked around for someone who could be responsible but failed to do so. Suddenly, the door broke down and out came the police. Sir Bakugo is taking anyone who is pure human. Hand anyone over at once, otherwise there shall be consequences. 𝗫𝗪𝗄 pulled Kaminari protectively behind him. And why does Sir Bakugo want that? The humans have declared war on the dragon kind, so we shall declare war back by murdering every last one of their kind that resides within us. Starting tomorrow, it shall be illegal to be in your human form and to be around humans in general. Kaminari growled. And that's why you killed our mother. No. That woman got in our way, so we dealt with her accordingly. Now, hand over any humans. 𝗫𝗪𝗄 turned around. On my signal, you run. Understand me? He whispered to Kaminari. What about you? I'll be fine, ready. No. I'm not going with 𝗳𝗏. 𝗫𝗪𝗄 pushed him past the guards and out the doorframe. Run. Stop him. The guard yelled. But a light flashed and a purple dragon stood in front of them, blocking their way. The rest of them transformed too. You've made a mistake. They growled, but he didn't respond. He just stared at them with cold eyes. Iida, All Might, 𝗫𝗪𝗄 and I found where Ochaco and Todoroki were being held. It was a prison similar to their first one, and the boy from earlier was with them. It was then I could take a good look at him. He had spiky, blonde hair and BLD red eyes which could pierce through your skull. He had tattoos on his arms and dragon tooth earrings. Our friends will find us. Just you wait, 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Ochaco spat his name like it was venom. So 𝗵𝗃𝗲's his name, I mumbled. How are we going to get those two back? We can always just charge in head-on. Shinso said. No. That is the best way of dying. Iida argued. Well, it's better to die knowing you tried even though you knew you'd die rather than have a plan and the plan failed and you need to have a feeling of doubt just before you die. None of that made sense. We live in a world of dragon shifters. Does anything make sense? I thought about it but shook it off. Enough fighting, you're both right. We can't go in without a plan, but we can't spend too long making a plan too. So, here is what I came up with. Iida, you're fast, really fast, so while Shinso and I distract 𝗵𝗃𝗲, you get Todoroki and Ochaco out. Got it? He nodded. Shinso, you and I will distract him. Just come up with anything that will get his attention away from the prison. So even singing. I could see a smirk form on his lips. No, please, no singing. Fine. Okay, plan in place, guys. Yep. Sure. Then let's do this, nobody get killed. Shinso and I crept around trying to get close to the prison. I found a rock and threw it at the angry, blonde cactus. But who threw that? He growled, looking around. You're gonna die. He walked over to where we were and I saw Iida creeping towards the prison, getting ready to free the other two. I hid behind a rock trying to avoid the Dragon Lord. I know you're there. Just get out now and maybe I'll consider a less harsh punishment. I gulped and peeked on the side of the rock to see Iida opening the lock and Ochaco stepping out. I sighed in relief when 𝗵𝗃𝗲 turned around and saw what was happening. He gasped angrily. Kirishima! He yelled. Kirishima started running towards Iida, Ochaco, and Todoroki. No! I screamed. I was pushed back by a harsh force and bright light. By the time I regained my sight, Kirishima had transformed and hovered over the cage. But he wasn't charging at it. I saw a smaller, yet very large purple dragon underneath him, standing over the prison so he couldn't get to it. I didn't need to think to realize who it was. Kirishima! 𝗵𝗃𝗲 yelled and Kirishima flew towards him. He jumped onto Kirishima's back and headed towards Shinso. Shinsu! Iida! I screamed and ran towards them. The fight between us and 𝗵𝗃𝗲 turned into a fight between the dragons, accompanied by 𝗵𝗃𝗲. He was a dragon shifter the whole time. I heard Iida mutter in disbelief. Yeah, although it seems it was obvious the whole time, I said, recalling how obvious it seemed. Why else would he have been trapped in that cage? If 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was a dragon lord, I don't think a human could easily kill his subjects. Either way, we need to leave now. I looked at Ochaco and Todoroki. All of us. They nodded and we ran over to Shinsu. I yelled. We need to leave now. Oh no you don't. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 jumped down from Kirishima's head and pulled out a scythe. First you trespass into my lands, try to escape from my prison, and now you try to help my other prisoners escape. You all deserve to die. I gulped as he charged at us. Suddenly, a scroll, the scroll with all might in it, appeared in front of me and it radiated a yellow light. I groaned and opened my eyes. I was in a white room and no one else was there. Guys! I called out. Ochaco! Iida! Todoroki! I whipped my head around to see a tall, blonde boy which looked like a younger version of All Might opening a wooden door. Are you really going on a journey? Another boy who looked similar to him asked. Well yeah. But mother and father said you couldn't. So what? I'm 16. I should be allowed. The other boy frowned. Toshinori. Just tell her I went off or something, yeah. I don't know, please, Itsuki. Itsuki groaned. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this. Just. Thank you, bro. Toshinori ran out of the room, leaving Itsuki behind. I watched as everything faded away. What is this, a memory? From who? Itsuki. Where is Toshinori? A tall, brunette, middle-aged woman yelled at Itsuki. He went out, she smacked him. But where? I don't know. He wouldn't tell me. I heard another smack but everything had already faded away. 𝗬𝗧𝗏𝗂𝐿. I turned around to see 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗏. Please. You need to stop this. They were in the middle of the battlefield and there were many lifeless bodies around them. No, 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗏. I will no longer listen to you. I looked over but instead of 𝗧𝗏𝗏 I saw a tall man in black clothing and a black mask. It's no longer 𝗧𝗏𝗏, he smirked. It's all for one. I gasped. Wait, does that mean that? I looked at 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗏. That is All Might. 𝗧𝗏𝗏, 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗏 frowned. I'm sorry. He took out a large sword and it began glowing yellow. I was nearly blinded because of how bright it was. What? I heard 𝗧𝗏𝗏 yell. Darn you, 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗏. I will get you back. The light died down and 𝗧𝗏𝗏 was nowhere to be found. It's no longer 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗏, he imitated. It's All Might. Some civilians popped out of the background. Why, you saved us. One of them yelled. Who are you? Another asked. 𝗧𝗵𝗧𝗏 smiled. It's fine now because I, All Might, am here. He raised his sword and everyone cheered for him. Everything started fading away. Wait. I called out. I need to know more. But as soon as I blinked I was back to reality. What just happened? I heard Iida ask. I turned around to face him. You saw it too. We all did, Ochaco said. Deku, what was that? I think it was All Might. No. My horse. Todoroki called out, watching his horse walk away. No. You're with All for One. Bakugo jumped down from Kirishima who had stopped fighting with Shinso. I knew I should have killed you. What? We're with All Might. We're trying to stop All for One. Likely story. Do you have any idea what All for One has done to me? Done to my dragons. He took my land away from me. Killed my dragons. Kirishima is the only one left. And that traitor Shinso that you call friend. He worked with AFO and gave Kaminari over to him. Shinso and Kirishima shifted back. What? Shinso yelled. You ordered your guards to take Kaminari away. What the hell? Kaminari was like a brother to me. I would never do that, liar. Bakugo yelled back. Guys. Stop yelling please. I whimpered as Bakugo glared daggers at me. Clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Nope. What I said is right, and you're a traitor, Shinso. How could I be a traitor? Either way, Kaminari made it out safely. Kirishima spoke up. Kaminari, he's safe. He managed to escape before the soldiers got him. He dropped to the ground in happiness. Yokata, all this time, I thought he was dead. A/N, Yokata, or means thank goodness in Japanese. Victory hand light skin tone. Kirishima, don't tell me you actually believe these idiots. Bakugo yelled. Listen to yourself, Bakugo. If you and Shinso believed two different things, then someone was clearly messing with you. Bakugo grumbled. Fine. I'll hear them out. Thank goodness. I sighed. So we were sent by All Might to find you, Bakugo, and you were meant to help us defeat All for One. So, I'm supposed to go with you. With him. Bakugo growled at Shinso. No, just you. I said. Without Kirishima. Yes. Nope. Why? If Kirishima isn't going, I'm not going. He's the only one I can actually tolerate. But All Might said dash, I groaned. He seemed like a deech and he was a deech. Just let him. Ochaco said. In fact, bring Shinso too. The more the merrier. But All Might said, the scroll suddenly appeared in front of me. All Might said what? Said All Might. You said only to find the Dragon Lord, Dragon Lord. Bakugo smirked at the title. I like it. But I also said you needed to find a group of people to help you defeat All for One. Young Midoriya, who's to say these aren't the chosen ones too? Young Uraraka, good job. I am proud of you. You see people as they are, not as they seem. Not as they seem? I asked. What does that mean? That's for you to figure out. For now, let young Bakugo, Kirishima and Shinso join you. I'm afraid I used up a lot of my power today, so I cannot tell you where the next person is. Just trust in yourselves, I'm sure you'll find him. Wait. I called out, but he had already disappeared. Were you and All for One really brothers? Well, are you ready to head off? Iida asked. But my horsey, Todoroki pouted. We'll have to find him. Okay, everyone started walking off and I trailed behind. People not as they seem but as they are. What does that mean?